Chapter 201. Ethan and his companions walked for a while, crossed a stone bridge, and finally entered Hogsmeade Village. As the only pure wizarding village in the Yin Kingdom, Hogsmeade holds the title of the most famous attraction. Ethan, however, considered the claim of being the only pure wizard village a bit of a marketing ploy. In truth, if one were determined to find a pure wizard village, several could be found, such as Irondale, which Ethan had visited before. However, those villages lacked the bustling business atmosphere of Hogsmeade, often comprising only a few households. Perhaps to maintain a quaint and mysterious ambience, most buildings in the village were medieval huts with white walls and black tiles, rarely exceeding 3 floors. This architectural style could be described as classical, or, more critically, as stubbornly traditional and resistant to modernity. Nonetheless, the village's magical charm lent it a dreamy atmosphere that delighted visitors. As they passed a shop emitting a sweet and greasy fragrance, the group stopped in unison. "Honeyduke's Candy Shop," Ethan read aloud, his eyes lighting up at the sight of the sign. The shop was legendary, especially among Hogwarts students craving sweets. Its signature BB candy was Dumbledore's favorite, with the headmaster reportedly ordering at least 10 kilograms annually. Iwu, enticed by the aroma, excitedly jumped onto Ethan's head. Ethan, what a delicious smell! I want to go in there and buy lots and lots of candies, more than 10 of me," he exclaimed. Ethan glanced at his companions, suggesting, "Shall we go in?" Let's forget it." He changed his mind upon seeing a swarm of Hogwarts students rushing into Honeyduke's, overcrowding the small shop. "If that doesn't work, let's start from the other end of Hogsmeade," Ethan proposed, drawing on his past experiences visiting various amusement parks and zoos. The group agreed and continued their exploration, encountering various magic shops along the way. These included Zonko's Joke Shop, Wizard's Sports Necessities, J. Pippin's Potion Shop, and several others, including 2 pubs and Mrs. Puttyfoot's Tea House. Despite their interest in other shops, they found them all crowded with Hogwarts students, mirroring the scene at Honeyduke's. Passing Mrs. Snelling's hair shop, Pinello suggested to Hermione, who was deeply engrossed in her studies, that a makeover might catch Ethan's attention. "Change your appearance. Maybe Ethan will like you more," Pinello whispered, leading a dazed Hermione into the salon. Ethan, acknowledging Hermione's wink, turned his attention to Mrs. Puttyfoot's tea house. Unlike the other bustling shops, the tea house seemed relatively quiet, with only a few patrons entering from time to time. "How about we go there first, sit down and drink some tea?" he suggested, offering a peaceful alternative to the crowded village streets. Ethan pointed the signboard of the store and said, "Oops, it's actually this store." Sorella looked in the direction Ethan pointed and couldn't help but scream. Her fair cheek suddenly turned red again. The girl squirmed for a while, then whispered, Okay, you can go anywhere." Although I didn't understand why she suddenly acted like this, her shy smile looked very attractive in Ethan's eyes, which made him breathe quickly. "Then let's go." When the two of them actually entered the tea house, Ethan instantly understood why the girl was like this. The tea house was filled with mist, and almost everything was decorated with pink ruffles and bows, exuding a distinctly girly atmosphere. The most important thing was that all the people sitting in the tea house were couples. The mist in the tea house effectively obscured people's sight, allowing couples to engage in private activities without concern for prying eyes. For example, holding hands, cuddling closely, whispering, and even passionately kissing right there. For instance, a couple near the entrance, wearing Hogwarts uniforms and clearly Ethan's classmates, were embracing each other affectionately, biting each other's faces without any scruples. From a distance, Ethan and Sorella could hear a series of tsk-tsk sounds. Ethan could clearly feel Sorella grabbing his hand subconsciously. The corners of the boy's mouth rose involuntarily, observing Sorella's reaction. She obviously knew what this tea house was for, but she followed Ethan in without objection. Even when Ethan suggested coming here, she seemed very happy. Perhaps Sorella did not object to him doing the same to her? With this thought, Ethan led Sorella to a secluded round table and sat down. Throughout the process, Sorella's body remained stiff, like a puppet under Ethan's control. "What would you two like?" Mrs. Puttyfoot asked. She was a plump woman with shiny black hair, struggling to squeeze between the two tables. 2 cups of black tea, add milk and sugar, and 2 strawberry mousses, Ethan ordered. The food was served quickly, and Ethan pushed the strawberry mousse in front of Sorella. Give it a try. The mousse cakes in this store look good, but I don't know how they taste. The sweet and fragrant cake successfully relaxed Sorella's nerves. She took a small bite with a spoon, and her eyes suddenly lit up. It tastes pretty good, at least not too cloying. So the two happily shared the cake. When the last bite was finished, Ethan suddenly said, "Sorella, it looks like you have some cream on your lips." "Oh, is it so?" When Sorella heard this, she hurriedly wanted to wipe it off, not wanting to appear gluttonous in Ethan's eyes. But Ethan held down her hand. "Let me do it." As he said that, he leaned forward under Sorella's surprised gaze and lightly pecked it off. The non-existent cream suddenly disappeared. "Ah!" Sorella screamed, and the blush on her face had spread to her neck. She never knew that Ethan would be so proactive and bold. But Ethan was far more mature in this regard than she thought. Seeing that the girl was so shy, Ethan struck while the iron was hot and sat directly next to her. Next, Mrs. Putifu noticed that a silver mist had risen from a corner of the store, almost forming a wall of fog, completely separating the inside from the outside. "What a powerful wizard," she murmured, "but even powerful wizards cannot escape the temptation of love." While passing through the silver mist, she could vaguely hear various tsk sounds coming from inside, as well as the girl's squeaks that were half crying and half moaning. Chapter 202. After more than half an hour, Ethan and Sorella left Mrs. Putifu's tea house. Sorella, dissatisfied with her disheveled clothes, complained, "You're too rough. You nearly unraveled the threads of my clothes. And that place, is it really that good? I even got rouge on me." Ethan, humming to himself, didn't respond, which irritated Sorella. She grabbed his shoulders, forcing him to face her. "Hey, what are you thinking about? Why are you so quiet?" Ethan shook his head, sighing, "It's nothing. I just feel like spring has arrived." Sorella, puzzled, looked up at the sky and then at the surrounding trees. "What are you talking about? It's clearly heading into winter." "My spring isn't the same as the one you're thinking of," Ethan cryptically remarked, leaving Sorella with more questions. However, he didn't elaborate further and continued walking towards Mrs. Snelling's hair shop with a smile. At the shop's entrance, they encountered someone who had just finished her appointment. Upon seeing Sorella, Penelo couldn't help but comment, "Tsk, tsk, love has truly transformed her. She's different from before." Flustered by the public mention, Sorella retorted, "Stop talking." Despite the common knowledge of her experiences, being called out like that embarrassed her greatly, leading to a playful scuffle with her friend. Yet, in their tussle, Sorella's movements bore no resemblance to her usual swordsman or witcher finesse. Meanwhile, Ethan's attention shifted to Hermione, who looked unrecognizable. Mrs. Snelling had worked wonders on her hair, transforming it from its usual unruly state to soft and shiny, gracefully resting on her shoulders. Her face received equal care, erasing the dark circles under her eyes and subtly adjusting her slightly protruding front teeth. Most notably, her overall demeanor had changed, as if she had shed the weight of the numerous books she usually carried. "What do you think?" Hermione asked shyly, quickly adding, "I didn't plan on changing so much, but Mrs. Snelling and Penelo insisted. If you don't like it—" Before she could finish, Ethan covered her mouth gently. "No, I like it very much. You look completely renewed today." Hermione's mood lifted instantly, pleased by Ethan's approval. At that moment, Iwu, the little dragon, leaped into Ethan's arms, eager for attention. "And me, look. They cleaned me thoroughly and polished every scale. See?" Iwu proudly showed off, then expressed disappointment at not being allowed to add a decorative blue tassel to his tail, misunderstanding the purpose of tassels. Ethan, amused and slightly exasperated, took his time explaining the difference between a wig and a tassel to Iwu. Just then, Penelo, the student president with now disheveled hair, approached Ethan with a smile. "By the way, Ethan, I'll be borrowing Sorella for a bit. You don't mind, right?" Ethan glanced at Sorella, who defensively crossed her arms. "That's enough for today. Don't even think about it again." With a smile, Ethan responded to Penelo, "Okay, you can take her, but just for today." Penelo, pleased, said, "Great, then we'll leave you be." It's girl time now." With that, she and Cirilla headed towards the Fenya Wizard clothing store. Ethan waved goodbye, calling out a reminder, "Remember to meet in the square at 5. Ethan looked at Hermione and suggested, "Then let's go shopping together." Hermione, eager to explore the wizarding village of Hogsmeade, agreed enthusiastically. Her brief glimpse earlier had only whetted her appetite for more. Unlike Ethan, whose thoughts might be drifting towards more romantic plans, Hermione, still untouched by the whims of young love, was driven purely by curiosity. The duo decided to visit Honeyduke's, a shop they had missed earlier. Arriving around noon, they found the shop less crowded, making it the perfect time for their visit. Ethan had cleverly planned their day to avoid the peak times. Although Ethan and Cirilla had snacked on cake at a tea house earlier, Hermione hadn't eaten since morning and was particularly hungry. Inside Honeyduke's, they were greeted by shelves laden with an array of tempting sweets: creamy almond candy, sparkling pink coconut sorbet, juicy honey toffee, and hundreds of chocolates neatly arranged, not to mention a large bucket of Bertie Bott's every flavor beans. The centerpiece of the store was a large bucket of fizzing Whizbees. Another wall was dedicated to special effect candies, bubble-blowing gum that filled the room with non-bursting bluebell-colored bubbles, buttertooth mints that crunched and crackled, pepper imps that could make one breathe fire, ice mice that made your teeth chatter with cold, frog-shaped mint ice cream that gave the sensation of frogs hopping in your stomach, sugar thread crispy feather candies, and exploding bonbon candies. Each candy looked irresistibly tempting. Hungry, Hermione decided to try the fizzing Whizbees, a shop signature. Both Ethan and Hermione enjoyed them immensely, but it was Iwu, Ethan's pet, who indulged the most. After Ethan summoned Iwu, the little creature had never seen so many sweets at once and eagerly stuffed its mouth. However, partway through its feast, Iwu suddenly stopped chewing, its expression frozen in shock as it began to float. "This candy is amazing. Have you seen it? I actually flew up, but I clearly didn't flap my wings," Iwu exclaimed. "How is this happening?" Hermione asked, puzzled. "This is the effect of eating too much fizzing Whizbees," Ethan explained. "The effect comes from the billywig sting, one of the ingredients in the candy." "I remember that ingredient," Hermione said, recalling their lessons. "We learned about it in our first year. It was one of the ingredients for the antidote to common poisons." "That's right, but the antidote only uses part of the properties of the sting. The billywig sting comes from the billywig, an insect native to Australia. Being stung by it causes dizziness and levitation," Ethan clarified. "No wonder Iwu can float," Hermione remarked, feeling enlightened. Ethan then had to hold Iwu's long tail like a balloon as they continued to explore the candy store. Soon they witnessed another peculiar sight, a Hufflepuff wizard who, after eating a red candy, seemed to burst into flames from his nose and mouth. "Oh my God!" Hermione exclaimed, tugging on Ethan's sleeve. "How is that possible? Doesn't it burn him?" Ethan observed carefully before responding, "Actually, that's not real flame, just red smoke." He then began to analyze the possible ingredients based on his knowledge of alchemy and potion making. "I think it might involve salamander blood and fire ash snake eggs, among other ingredients. Dragon blood would be too expensive. I'll need to buy some and conduct further research before I can determine the exact composition." An accurate answer. "Oh my God, kid, please don't do this." Ambrosio Frum, the proprietor of Honeyduke's, stepped forward with a wry smile. "It's truly astonishing. Just by looking, you've managed to deduce most of the recipes I've spent ages perfecting. These are trade secrets." "Sorry, boss. I was just conducting some potions research with Hermione," Ethan apologized. "Is the potions research by young wizards and witches at Hogwarts so advanced now?" The thin, somewhat balding man peered at Ethan and suddenly exclaimed, "I recognize you. You're Ethan Green. You received a first-class medal for killing the Chimera, and you'll also be on the dragon-slaying mission during the summer vacation. No wonder you can identify the elements of Pepper Naughty. I've heard many young wizards at Hogwarts mention you, and they all say you're a genius. Now that I see you, your reputation is indeed well-deserved." Boss Frum's compliments took Hermione by surprise. She hadn't realized her close friend was so renowned in the wizarding world that even the owner of a store would recognize him. "So, She looked at Ethan with even greater admiration. Chapter 203. Ethan had assured Froome that his interest was purely for research, yet Froome still handed over 2 large jars of his latest creation, Pepper Naughty, to the mischievous boy. "Pepper Naughty is my newest concoction. How does it taste?" Froome inquired, shaking the candies at them. Ethan and Hermione, without any hesitation, and after expressing their thanks, opened a jar and each took one. Soon, they were playfully spraying flames at each other, resembling 2 miniature fire dragons. The flames were warm, tickling Ethan's nasal passages, yet they were nothing compared to the fiery breath of his chimera form. But then again, Ethan mused, how many wizards in the world have had the chance to experience such a breath firsthand? Beyond its amusing effects, the Pepper Naughty was delicious, blending sweet and spicy flavors reminiscent of popping candy. Creating magical effects with potions was one thing, but the real challenge, as Froome demonstrated, was in crafting pastries that were both tasty and magical. Ambrosio Froome, a master of potion-based confectionery, had been a favorite of Horace Slughorn during his student years and had even been invited to join the prestigious Slug Club. His first job had been a recommendation from Slughorn himself. "This is fantastic, truly a hit in the making. I can already see its success," Ethan complimented. Froome, delighted by Ethan's praise, laughed heartily. "I'm glad you think so. In fact, many young wizards bought my Pepper Naughty this morning." "Seriously, Mr. Green, have you ever considered a career in confectionery after graduation? With your talent, you could create all sorts of delightful sweets," Froome half-joked, echoing sentiments Ethan had heard before during his time working in Diagon Alley. "Of course, I wouldn't even need a salary. Just teach me how to make these treats," Ethan replied in jest. "You're not planning to learn my secrets and open your own shop, are you?" Froome asked, half in doubt. "That's not it at all. I'm not after money," Ethan waved off the suggestion earnestly. "I just want to learn for the sake of making them for the people I care about, like her," he said, glancing at Hermione, who appeared suddenly engrossed in a pink coconut sorbet on the shelf, though Ethan noticed the corners of her mouth turning up in a smile. Froome, missing the exchange between the two, sighed. "It's a shame. Even if you were willing, our little shop couldn't afford a talent like yours. To have a dragon-slaying warrior among us." "Forget dragon-slaying. We haven't even had lunch yet," Ethan complained. "What would you like to eat?" "It's on me today," Froome offered generously. Ethan and Hermione indulged in a feast of pumpkin pie, cauldron-shaped cakes, a plate of ice mice, several chocolate cauldrons, licorice wands, and 2 cans of sherbet lemon. Much of it was for Iwu, but even she couldn't finish a large cauldron-shaped cake and a licorice wand. So Ethan and Hermione ended up enjoying their treats while strolling through the streets of Hogsmeade, sipping on pumpkin soda. "I never expected you to be so well known here," Hermione remarked as they walked. "It's our first meeting, and Froome gave us so many sweets. He's so generous." "It's not as simple as you think." Ethan quickly dispelled her notion. "He's trying to win me over because I can easily decipher his dessert recipes. He's essentially buying my silence." "Is that really the case?" Hermione was taken aback, but then nodded in understanding. "Well, in the adult world, I'm not surprised." As they passed Zuko's joke shop, Ethan spotted the Weasley twins. The shop was a favorite among Hogwarts students during their Hogsmeade visits, known for its wide array of prank items. Ethan guessed that the twins had come to Zuko's joke shop to purchase goods and seek inspiration for their own prank products. However, their skills were not yet advanced enough to develop a product as sophisticated as those found in Zuko's, so they sought Ethan's assistance during the summer vacation. As they were about to leave the shop, Fred suddenly clutched his stomach and whispered something to George before hastily departing, leaving George behind. To Ethan's surprise, Fred quickly recovered after turning the corner, showing no signs of discomfort, and hurried towards Angelina, Ravenclaw's chaser, who was waiting impatiently. Ethan and Hermione were taken aback, having not anticipated Fred secretly dating Angelina without George's knowledge. George, oblivious to his brother's actions, continued browsing the joke shop, unaware of the budding relationship. Ethan even mused that by the time George discovered the relationship, Fred and Angelina might already have a family. The incident with the twins was merely a minor event during their trip to Hogsmeade. After exploring the village, Hermione felt tired, prompting Ethan to take her to the Three Broomsticks pub for a rest. Upon entering, Ethan greeted several familiar faces, including Professors Flitwick, McGonagall, and Hagrid. They warmly welcomed Ethan and Hermione to join them. It was then that Ethan noticed Cornelius Fudge, the Minister of Magic, seated further inside, obscured by Hagrid's large frame. Ethan greeted Mr. Fudge with a polite nod, acknowledging their past encounters, including the times Fudge had honored him with awards for his bravery. Ethan ordered butterbeers and sandwiches from Ms. Rosmerta, the tavern's proprietress, maintaining a calm demeanor despite the distinguished company. Hermione, however, felt nervous about sharing a drink with professors and the Minister of Magic. Ms. Rosmerta, a graceful and beautiful woman, quickly took their order and joined the conversation at the bar. The discussion soon turned to the Dementors' raids on the tavern, which Rosmerta lamented for driving away her customers. Fudge attempted to justify the presence of Dementors as a necessary precaution, despite the general discontent with their presence, especially from Professors McGonagall and Flitwick, who criticized their impact on the students and the school's atmosphere. Flitwick specifically credited Ethan for protecting the students during Dementor attacks, prompting Fudge to awkwardly acknowledge Ethan's contributions to the Ministry of Magic. The conversation shifted towards Sirius Black, revealing sensitive information in Ethan's presence, but the group seemed unbothered by his inclusion in the discussion. Explosive information circulated because, in their impression, Ethan was more than qualified to be privy to such details with his abilities. Even Min had been exposed. Unlike some girls who, upon gaining an advantage, would pretend it didn't exist, they would listen to gossip over butterbeer with keen interest. "You know, I still can't quite believe it," Ms. Rosmerta reminisced, "that Sirius Black turned out so badly. I mean, when he was a kid at Hogwarts, if you had told me what he would become, I would have said it was too much." "You don't know the half of it, Rosmerta," Fudge said stiffly. "Few people know the worst thing he did." "Worst?" Rosmerta's voice was laced with curiosity. "Do you mean it's worse than killing all those people?" "Do you remember who his best friend was?" Fudge asked, rhetorically. "Of course I remember," Rosmerta smiled slightly. "Sirius Black and James Potter were quite the pair, inseparable, right? They always made me laugh." Ethan was quietly eating melon, but suddenly glanced at a corner of the bar. "You would think that Black and Potter were brothers," Professor Flitwick interjected in agreement. "Inseparable." Then they delved into the closeness between the two, and how James Potter had chosen Black to be the keeper of the Fidelity Curse. Professor McGonagall sighed. Who would have thought that between two people who were so close, Black would betray him in the end? "Where's Potter?" By the end of her sentence, McGonagall, who was usually composed, seemed a bit choked up. Hermione was almost dumbfounded. She could already imagine what Harry would think after learning all this. Given his character, he would ably be furious, seeking out Black. Should she tell him about this? While she was contemplating, the group discussed more, touching on how Black was captured and Peter Pettigrew. About an hour later, the professors and Fudge left the bar. Just as Hermione was about to pull Ethan away, she found him leading her to a corner of the bar. Suddenly, he said to the air, "Come out, Harry. I know you're here." Then, Harry Potter, who was under an invisibility cloak and red-faced from holding back, appeared alongside Ron, who was huddled with him, filled with righteous indignation. They had overheard everything. Chapter 204. "Harry, how are you?" Hermione quickly asked, seeing Harry struggling to contain his emotions. She couldn't help but feel a surge of anger on behalf of Harry. Sirius had betrayed his best friend, leading to the destruction of Harry's family. It was unfathomable how people could go to such lengths. And it wasn't just Sirius. Fudge and several professors were also at fault for concealing such crucial information from Harry. Perhaps influenced by Ethan, Hermione had started to question the authority of the professors and the Ministry of Magic. Following Ethan, she had seen him shatter the wizarding world's long-standing perceptions and rules time and again with his innovative spells. If even the established laws and textbook knowledge could be challenged, what of those in authority? After all, they were only human. and humans were more prone to error than the immutable rules of magic. Harry, grappling with his emotions, finally spoke. Sirius, I'm gonna kill that man. However, Ethan quickly tempered his resolve. Harry, I understand your anger and desire for revenge for your parents, but please, calm down first. Rushing into vengeance against Sirius, especially with your current abilities, would be suicidal. Ethan's words, though speculative and lacking concrete evidence, were meant to caution rather than convince. They stood in stark contrast to the truth, endorsed by several professors and Minister Fudge, yet they were grounded in a sobering reality. Harry wanted to argue, but knew Ethan was right. The hurdle of his emotions, however, was hard to overcome. Ron, feeling indignant on Harry's behalf, apologized to Ethan for a misunderstanding earlier that day before expressing his frustration. But can't you help Harry with this? With your skills, capturing Sirius shouldn't be too difficult, right? And you should let Harry join your study group so he can learn to protect himself. Ron, how can you say that? Hermione interjected before Ethan could respond, defending him by highlighting that the study group was a collective effort of Ravenclaw and not Ethan's sole decision. Ethan, comforting Hermione with a pat on her hand, addressed Ron. There's something I've discussed with Hermione before. The situation with Sirius escaping prison and supposedly targeting Harry seems too convenient. There's likely more to it than meets the eye. He continued. As for self-defense, I've already suggested to Harry that Professor Lupin would be more than willing to teach him the Patronus charm, among other things. Ethan then offered a piece of advice. Before jumping to conclusions about Sirius or Lupin, it might be wise to delve deeper into the events surrounding Harry's parents. Knowledge is power, after all. Concluding his point, Ethan sternly reminded Ron, We are friends, yes, but I can't solve all your problems for you. It's important to learn to navigate some challenges on your own. With that, Ethan walked away. Hermione hurried after him, taking his hand and apologizing for Ron's harsh words. Ethan reassured her, This isn't your fault. There's no need for you to apologize. Apologize? Ethan said, his voice tinged with emotion. Perhaps this is the Gryffindor style of friendship. When they're close to you, they're passionate and would sacrifice their lives for you. But the moment they suspect you, they're the quickest to fall out with you. Their recklessness makes them even quicker to turn than Slytherins. He remembered how Harry and Ron had points deducted in their first semester and their ordeal in the second semester when they were suspected of being the heirs of Slytherin. Upon hearing this, Hermione decisively responded, I have absolutely no doubt about Ethan. Of course, I firmly believe this, Ethan replied, gently touching Hermione's hair in a comforting gesture. If you're worried about Harry, you can go back to see him first. I'm just angry with Ron and won't take it out on anyone else. You are so kind, Hermione said, visibly moved by Ethan's understanding. She hugged him, stood on puffed tiptoes, and kissed his cheek. Realizing her impulsiveness, she hurried back to the bar with a blushing face. Left alone, Ethan didn't consider looking for Ciri and Penello. Remembering he had promised to meet a girl in Hogsmeade, he immediately headed there. He started searching in the Spinwitch Sports Necessities store and soon found Jiang Chu standing with her friend Marietta, both admiring a broom in the most conspicuous display cabinet in the center of the store. Ethan approached and tapped Jiang Chu on the shoulder. Her bored expression instantly turned to surprise. It's you, Ethan. I thought you weren't coming. Since I promised, why wouldn't I come? Ethan replied with a charming smile, not mentioning that his visit was due to Hermione being otherwise occupied. What are you doing now? He asked. Marietta and I are looking at the firebolt. Jiang Chu replied excitedly. It's the fastest broom in the world, designed by the famous Randolph Badmore and produced by Ellerby and Badmore. The Irish national team even ordered 7 of them. If I could ride this broom in the Quidditch Cup, I'd outfly all the chasers. Marietta, bored with the conversation about Quidditch, yawned. Chew, since your friend has arrived, I'll head back. I've been wandering around Hogsmeade for 2 extra hours waiting with you, and I'm exhausted. With that, she left the store, leaving Ethan and Jiang Chu alone. Sorry, Jiang Chu, I didn't realize you had waited so long. There was something earlier, Ethan said, feeling a bit embarrassed and guilty for almost standing her up. It's okay, I understand. After all, choosing you, I was mentally prepared, Jiangchu replied with a bright smile, though her tone carried a hint of sadness. Feeling a bit guilty but determined to make it up to her, Ethan had an idea. He asked Jiangchu to wait for him, then went to the counter to speak with the store owner. Soon, he returned with a carefully packaged firebolt and handed it to Jiangchu. "This is," she began, unable to believe it. Ethan placed the broomstick in her hands. "Consider it an early Christmas gift. You wanted the firebolt, right?" "But this is too expensive," Jiangchu protested, hesitant to accept such a lavish gift. "For 500 galleons," Ethan replied. "But I only paid 400 for each one because I bought 3 of them at once, nearly depleting his stock." 3? Jiangchu was visibly surprised. "Why did you buy so many firebolts?" "Of course, for riding. The Quidditch season is about to start this semester, so they're perfect for the competitions," Ethan explained, breaking it down for her. "One for myself, one for Cyrilla, and one for you. It's a shame you're hesitant to accept it." "Cyrilla has one too?" Jiangchu latched on to that detail. "That's right," Ethan nodded, "and she will definitely accept it. Siri never turns down my gestures." Upon hearing about his rival, Jiangchu clenched his teeth and declared, "Okay, I'll accept it." "Wow, that's great," Ethan feigned surprise, though he was not surprised at all. Everything had unfolded just as he anticipated. He knew well that a little jealousy among girls could work wonders if leveraged correctly. Chapter 205. After crossing the psychological threshold, Jiangchu immediately admired the firebolt in front of her, from the golden serial number at the top of the broom to its completely smooth and streamlined tip. Finally, she carefully handed it to Ethan. "Can you help me put it away first?" she asked reluctantly. "I really want to keep carrying it, but it's too ostentatious. How about you give it to me when we get back to the lounge?" "It's not that troublesome. Think of it as an additional service," Ethan replied, handing her a small handbag. "This homemade product can hold about 1 cubic meter of items, which is more than enough for a firebolt." Seeing the surprised expression on her face, Ethan added, "Although it has a large capacity, the cost is actually not as high as you might think. To me, it's just a spell. I can create as many as I want, so please, take it." After insisting, he placed the handbag in Jiangchu's hands. She numbly accepted it and put the firebolt and her previously purchased goods inside. Suddenly, she realized that she didn't fully understand the boy beside her. Initially, his appearance drew her in, and she fell for him because of their tacit understanding on the court and his protective nature. However, her understanding of him was limited to his strength and achievements. She didn't grasp the ease with which he did things or his wealth. Being with him, she had thought her emotional investment was one-sided. But now, it seemed all she could offer was her emotions. Between them, there appeared to be a thick barrier. Ethan seemed to see through her confusion and gently held her shoulders. "Don't overthink it, Jiangchu. My lifestyle is just like this. There's no need to compare yourself to me, just as you wouldn't compare yourself to Dumbledore or the Dark Lord. If you feel inadequate, focus on your studies. The girlfriend I envision is not just emotional support, but also a career ally." I will," Jiangchu nodded obediently. She thought of Cyrilla and then Hermione, who had contributed their insights to Ethan's legendary experiences. She couldn't be the exception. Determined to become a woman worthy of Ethan Green, she silently cheered herself on. Next, the two explored Hogsmeade. Ethan took Jiangchu to Mrs. Putafoot's tea house for a while before they went shopping at Honeyduke's. The owners of both establishments wisely didn't mention Ethan's previous visits with different girls. "It seems we have to hurry today," Jiangchu mentioned in Honeyduke's. "Why?" Ethan asked. "Because of this." She pointed to a notice at the candy shop's door. It was from the Ministry of Magic, warning customers that Dementors would patrol the streets of Hogsmeade from sunset every day until Sirius Black was captured. This measure was to ensure the residents' safety, and all customers were asked to finish their shopping before sunset. This notice wasn't there during Ethan's last visit, likely posted after his meeting with Fudge at the bar. Understanding the urgency, they quickly finished their shopping. Ethan remembered that among the 3 girls, Jiangchu had the sweetest tooth. Not only did he spend a considerable amount on boxes of snacks, but he also ordered a batch of fruit preserves to be mailed to Hogwarts. In the end, as they were leaving Hogsmeade, they ran into Cyrilla and Penello in the central square. The change in Ethan's companion surprised them, but being Ravenclaws and familiar with Zhangqiu, they managed to hide their curiosity. Ethan was well aware of their interest in Zhangqiu. Upon their return to Hogwarts, each of the four friends harbored their own secret plans, yet outwardly they all seemed to be in high spirits. The excitement within the Ravenclaw Quidditch team reached new heights when it was discovered that Ethan, Cyrilla, and Zhangqiu each possessed a firebolt broomstick. The revelation sent the team into a frenzy. "I can't believe it," exclaimed Roger Davis, pushing his way through the crowd with a voice filled with disbelief and excitement. "The firebolt is the dream of every young wizard, and Ethan, Cyrilla, and Zhangqiu each have one. Can I touch it, please?" Roger asked, his voice quivering with excitement. When Ethan handed him the broom, Roger treated it with reverence, as if it were a priceless treasure, carefully admiring its craftsmanship. Inspired by the presence of the firebolts, Roger Davis led the team with renewed vigor, pushing them to train harder than ever, regardless of the harsh weather conditions. Yet, not a single complaint was heard among the team members. The sight of the firebolts soaring through the sky filled them with hope and determination, as if the gleaming Academy Cup was beckoning them. Even off the field, the trio with the firebolts received adulation from their fellow Ravenclaws, a testament to the prestige associated with such exceptional broomsticks. The other houses, upon learning of Ravenclaw's new acquisitions, were thrown into disarray. Malfoy, in particular, was visibly shaken, knowing well that his father would never indulge in purchasing 7 firebolts for Slytherin, especially considering their exorbitant cost. Gryffindor felt the impact of Ravenclaw's advantage, with the gap between them seemingly widening. However, Ravenclaw chose not to flaunt their superiority immediately. The first match of the season was between Gryffindor and Hufflepuff. On the day of the game, the weather was atrocious, with howling winds and relentless rain darkening the corridors and necessitating additional lighting in the auditorium. The conditions on the pitch were even more severe, challenging the players' morale and physical capabilities. Despite the thunderous weather and the difficulty for spectators to follow the action, the match proceeded. The players, battling against the elements, hoped for a swift conclusion to the grueling game. Ethan, however, was an exception. Utilizing his eagle-eye technique and dark vision, he was able to observe the match unimpeded by the weather. Amidst the storm, Ethan spotted an unexpected figure across the stands, a large, shaggy black dog sitting silently among the empty seats. Just as Zhangqiu excitedly announced the sighting of the golden snitch, the atmosphere shifted. A peculiar silence enveloped the stadium, and a chilling familiarity washed over Ethan. He realized, with a sense of dread, that the Dementors had arrived. As we welcome the month of 2020, I find myself eagerly anticipating a surge of support through custom orders, flowers, monthly votes, reviews, and rewards. Your votes are particularly valuable to me as the author. If you're able to, please consider directing them my way. Your support means the world to me. Chapter 2 of 6, Dementor Invasion. It's a Dementor. They are in heaven. The players are in danger. Get him back. Ethan heard Penello shouting. As if to confirm her words, in the next moment, Harry's figure trembled in the sky before he suddenly plummeted. In the stands, hundreds of young wizards witnessed this terrifying scene. A large number of Dementors descended from the sky, their presence darker than the clouds of a thunderstorm, sending a soul-chilling cold through the crowd that elicited ear-piercing screams from countless young wizards. "Oh my God, it's really a Dementor. How did they get here? Harry, he fell from the sky. Help!" For a moment, the entire Quidditch field was engulfed in chaos, filled with screams, cries, curses, and a cacophony of other sounds. Faced with this situation, Ethan had no choice but to stand up and confront the Dementors looming in the sky, despite already being familiar with this plot from the original work. Experiencing it firsthand, he couldn't suppress his anger towards the Ministry of Magic. At its core, this incident was a result of the Ministry's negligence. They had dispatched the Dementors for a capture mission without considering their need for sustenance. In Azkaban, Dementors had a stable food source, But what about when they were sent on tasks outside? It was not as if they could simply order takeout. Thus, when a hungry Dementor encountered a place like Hogwarts teeming with food, it was inevitable that something would happen. The Dementor's attack on the young wizard was certainly their fault, but the Ministry of Magic should have been aware of the Dementor's nature. The Dementors lacked sensibility, but what was the Ministry's excuse? Predictably, today they were drawn by the joy emanating from the Quidditch field, and with the pretext of hunting down Sirius Black, the Dementors couldn't restrain themselves. As for Harry's safety, Ethan didn't need to worry. Someone else was more concerned than he was. Harry's descent had slowed even before Professor McGonagall could intervene. Ethan glanced at the Slytherin stands, and as expected, saw Snape, his face grim, wearing a black raincoat and pointing his wand at Harry. He had cast the Shock Reduction and Speed Stop spell. Shortly after, Miss Huo-Chi, the referee, flew over on a broom and caught Harry in midair. The Dementors, having lost their target, grew angry, but soon found a new one: all the students in the Quidditch field. Ethan noticed Snape raise his wand, seemingly ready to cast a spell, but he hesitated and ultimately refrained, likely concerned that his stag Patronus would reveal too much about him. However, Snape's intervention wasn't necessary. The crisis at hand was precisely the practical lesson Ethan had prepared in advance. It also served as the perfect advertisement for the study group. Ethan was determined not to let this organization, which had recruited a small circle, be limited to Ravenclaw. All Ravenclaws, please calm down and sit back now. I will keep you safe. Please believe that Dementors have nothing to fear in front of us. Ethan's resounding voice, amplified by the phantom sound, echoed through the entire stand, immediately calming the Ravenclaws. The chaos in Ravenclaw subsided significantly, and the students, previously like headless chickens, found their backbone and followed his instructions. Ethan glanced at Penello. The female student president had been trying to maintain order, but her efforts had been largely ignored. Now, after receiving Ethan's signal, she immediately began to fulfill her duties, and the Ravenclaws cooperated much more effectively. The order in a state of emergency requires extreme measures for safety. All members of the study group, please stand up and take out your magic wands. Prepare to follow my command. Today is an extra practical lesson, Ethan announced. Wow, almost half of the young wizards in the Ravenclaw stand stood up. The study group had become a beacon of hope in the midst of chaos. Ethan had conducted 3 classes so far today. Why? Many of the group members had learned the Patronus charm, and most could at least produce a stream of silver mist, showcasing Ethan's teaching prowess. With each class, Ethan, as a teacher, solidified his absolute authority in their hearts. Upon hearing Ethan's command, none of the young wizards hesitated, facing the challenge as if it were merely a boggart transformation. However, Ethan was acutely aware that only a few of his group could truly cast the Patronus charm under such intense conditions. A failure could shatter their confidence. Fortunately, Ethan had a secret weapon. Iwu, it's your turn to lift their spirits. I'm on it. Iwu, the dragon, flapped her wings, perched atop Ethan's head, and curiously asked, can I sing the new song you taught me? Of course, it's all yours. Ethan knew the importance of supporting Iwu's aspirations. Not just any dragon, Iwu was a budding performing artist. Thus, learning various arts and music was part of her daily routine. Ethan often shared with her the works of later generations, which she greatly enjoyed, such as the song she was about to sing. My broken wooden box is full of withered flowers that cannot be put down, light and soil, and fresh wishes. If you can fly, go to a high place, cast a dream net, and collect the echoes of love. Iwu's tender and crisp voice, combined with the beautiful melody, illuminated the dark sky, creating a vibrant paradise amidst the boundless darkness. The young wizards felt as if they were surrounded by knee-high elves, singing and dancing, dispelling the emptiness and darkness brought by the Dementors and filling it with the purest joy of childhood. Then, come with me, Guardian. Ethan recited a spell, and from the tip of his staff, a silver adult carnival dragon Patronus emerged, its wings fluttering as it flew towards the black mass of Dementors. This Patronus, unlike the miniature versions shown in group teaching, was the size of an adult carnival dragon, 10 meters in length, with a wingspan of 7 or 8 meters. Facing hundreds of Dementors, it was a behemoth, imposing and majestic. The appearance of the carnival dragon Patronus inspired the young Ravenclaw wizards. They followed Ethan's lead, chanting the spells, "Protector." With Iwu's song uplifting their spirits, nearly half of the young wizards successfully conjured a Patronus, while most of the others managed to produce a stream of silver mist. Suddenly, the Ravenclaw stand turned to a menagerie of swans, rabbits, foxes, deer, eagles. Various Patronuses hovered in the stands. Then, following the carnival dragon, they charged at the Dementors. The sight of this silver ocean captivated everyone. The Dementors, faced with the onslaught of Patronuses, nearly collapsed. The carnival dragon at the forefront unleashed a silver breath, its fearsome dragon's breath sweeping past, causing the spectral monsters to flee in all directions. However, 2 Dementors, unable to escape in time, were engulfed by the dragon's breath, decomposing and vanishing in ripples. Could the breath of the carnival dragon Patronus actually kill Dementors? The concept of death, previously foreign to Dementors, became a shocking reality. The scene on the Quidditch field not only astounded the professors familiar with Dementors, but also terrified the remaining Dementors. They ultimately ceased their hunt and fled the field, unwilling to remain in such a fearsome place. The Dementors near the Ravenclaw stand were carpething with ill. Everything was far from over. Ethan took control of the carnival dragon Patronus and flew towards the other stands. The Patronuses of the young eagles followed closely behind. In the Ravenclaw stands, those who had failed to successfully summon their Patronuses were inspired by this scene. They chanted the incantation repeatedly, and new Patronuses continued to appear, joining the ranks of the others. Ethan believed that in addition to spells and emotions, confidence was key to casting spells. A wizard who believes in their ability to cast a spell will indeed cast it successfully. In the case of collective spellcasting, the success of peers can significantly boost the confidence of the participants. The legion of Patronuses grew larger, and the Dementors fled more rapidly. As the Patronuses passed over the stands, the panicked young wizards suddenly felt waves of warm power, significantly reducing their panic. Iwu's ballad also reached its climax. "Is it you?" On the way home, the moonlight illuminates the flower stamens. "Is it you?" Playing ancient chords to drive away nightmares, accompanying me to sleep. "Is it you?" Weaving the rainwater above your head into blue eaves. We have made a promise. When we all grow up, we will adventure again and chase the spread of dreams. Who crossed a sea of flowers? Who is coming towards me? Who still remembers my unfulfilled wish? As the singing gradually slowed, all the Dementors fled. Like a parade, the Patronuses, led by the carnival dragon, circled the field amidst the cheers of the young wizards, and then disappeared one after another. At that moment, even the dark clouds in the sky partially dissipated, revealing a streak of sunshine that symbolized hope. Chapter 207. Even 50 years later, the young wizards present at that moment would not forget the scene they witnessed. A group of young wizards from Ravenclaw, led by Ethan Green, had summoned an army of Patronuses to confront and defeat an army of Dementors, saving everyone in the process. This legendary victory overshadowed even the outcome of the Quidditch match. No one was concerned that Hufflepuff's Cedric Diggory had caught the golden snitch, or that Gryffindor's captain, Wood, had shed tears on the field. Nor did they care that Harry Potter was safe, albeit unconscious and taken to the school's infirmary. Everyone was grateful to the young Ravenclaws for rescuing them from the clutches of the Dementors. The overwhelming burst of silver light that dispelled the coldness and despair, followed by joy and warmth, would be etched in their memories, reappearing in their dreams countless times. The bravery of these young wizards, who had participated in this legendary battle, was envied by all. Such feats, even 50 years later, would remain a highlight of their conversations. Ethan, the orchestrator of this victory, became immensely popular among the young wizards. A group of ordinary students, after just a few lessons from him, had managed to defeat hundreds of Dementors. Before this event, such a claim would have been met with disbelief. Ethan's study group quickly became the most sought-after circle at Hogwarts, proving his innovative idea a success. However, when people sought him out, they discovered that Ethan had already left. At that moment, Ethan was swiftly navigating through the forbidden forest. To expedite his journey, he summoned Laurie, a unicorn with whom he had a mount technique contract, allowing him to call upon her at any time. His purpose in the forbidden forest was to track Sirius Black. The unicorn's hoofbeats were rapid as Ethan, utilizing his druidic powers, made the vegetation part ways for Laurie. Black, who had transformed into a black dog, was cautious and left almost no traces. However, Ethan found this to be a mere trifle. Every so often, he would stop, touch a tree, and use plant conversation to gather information about Black's whereabouts from the trees. The forest, with its seemingly senseless trees, recorded all nearby activities, making it easy for Ethan to determine Black's direction. After following Black's trail and avoiding the Acromantula's territory, Ethan arrived at the Humping Willow on the grounds of Hogwarts. The tree's branches thrashed wildly, as if in a tempest, attempting to keep Ethan at bay. Despite the Humping Willow's aggressive movements, Ethan knew there was a passage hidden within its roots leading to the Shrieking Shack. He observed the tree, looking for a way to bypass its defenses. The Humping Willow's branches twisted maniacally, never showing signs of fatigue. Ethan was aware of the method to pacify the Humping Willow, a special knot that, when pressed, would immediately halt its movements, rendering it as still as stone. However, the tree was covered in scars, making the knot difficult to identify for most, but Ethan had no need to search for it. As a druid, he had a unique rapport with plants. With a simple command plant spell, Ethan easily calmed the Humping Willow. What Black had considered a foolproof security measure was rendered ineffective by Ethan's abilities. After dismissing Laurie, Ethan approached the Humping Willow and climbed into the narrow hole. To avoid any discomfort in the tight space, Ethan transformed into the form of a chimera, ready to face whatever lay ahead. In the guise of a badger, Ethan observed a large black and white head navigating through a tree hole, then sliding down a soil slope into the entrance of a very low tunnel. For a human, traversing this tunnel would require bending down significantly, making it a torturous journey. However, for Ethan, transformed into a badger, it was perfectly suited. The tunnel stretched forward, and after about 5 minutes, it began to slope upward. A few steps further, it turned a corner, and soon, Ethan spotted a glimmer of light, indicating a small exit. Reverting to his human form, Ethan cast an advanced invisibility spell on himself, took a deep breath, and proceeded quietly. Sirius Black was supposed to be inside. The other end of the tunnel opened into a disheveled, gray room. The wallpaper was peeling off the walls, the floor was stained, and every piece of furniture was damaged, as if vandalized. The windows were all boarded up. This was the Screaming Shack. However, there was no sign of Sirius. As Ethan took a step forward, he realized the dilapidated shack's floor betrayed his presence. Despite his lightest steps, the floorboards creaked under his weight. In a moment of quick thinking, Ethan waved his wand, and a disk of condensed magic appeared beneath his feet, lifting him into the air and allowing him to move silently around the shack like a ghost. Suddenly, another creaking sound echoed through the room. Ethan, floating silently, knew it wasn't him, so it had to be something else. Clutching his wand tightly, he directed the floating disc towards the source of the noise. There, he found a large black dog with its rear end sticking out, hiding behind a door, oblivious to Ethan's presence. The dog's luck turned sour as Ethan waved his hand, and vines sprouted from the ground, entangling the dog's feet tightly. Ethan then dispelled his invisibility, revealing himself to the startled dog, which could only glare at him menacingly, teeth bared and saliva dripping to the ground, emitting a sour odor. Ethan frowned and remarked, "I think you need to brush your teeth properly." With a flick of his wand, a piece of broken wood transformed into a large brush, and with another summoning, a large ball of water materialized in the air. Ethan forced the water into the dog's mouth, and under its desperate gaze, inserted the large brush between its lips and teeth, giving it a thorough scrub. By the time he finished, the dog was so overwhelmed it couldn't even open its mouth. Finally, Ethan pointed his wand at the dog and commanded, "Reveal your true face." This was a 7th-level spell from the protection system, a spell Ethan had mastered only after achieving the Oyuan Master professional level. Its purpose was to force any shapeshifter back into their natural form, whether they were under the influence of a simple disguise spell, an ordinary shape-shifting spell, or even an animagus transformation. In the next moment, the black dog transformed into a thin, embarrassed man. His waxy skin clung to his skeletal face, giving him an almost corpse-like appearance. Only the eyes, shining from deep within their sockets, suggested life. His clothes were dirty, but his mouth was now conspicuously clean, which looked quite amusing. "Sirius Black," Ethan said seriously. "I caught you." Chapter 208. Changing back to his original form did not release Sirius from the vine's restraints. Under the heavy binding, Sirius could only hold himself up with difficulty, staring at Ethan, full of surprise and vigilance. He hadn't expected that after escaping the Auror and the Dementor, he would fall into the hands of a boy who appeared to be no older than 14 or 15. Feeling the strong restraint all over his body, Sirius wisely decided against a direct confrontation for the time being. He calmly surveyed his surroundings, searching for an opportunity to escape, and said with a hint of venom, "Congratulations, boy. You've captured Sirius Black, the most notorious prisoner in Azkaban. When do you plan to take me in to collect the bounty?" "That little bounty alone doesn't motivate me to work for the Ministry of Magic," Ethan replied leisurely, taking back his wand and looking directly at the thin, haggard man before him. "I'm here specifically to find you." Sirius didn't understand what Ethan meant, but he soon would. A name slowly emerged from Ethan's mouth: Peter Pettigrew. At the mention of this name, Sirius's pupils contracted, and he struggled violently, but the strong vines firmly quelled his impulse. It was only then that he calmed down again, though his eyes were now filled with a deep-seated madness. "Where did you get that name?" Sirius asked, each word heavy with suspicion. Various thoughts raced through his mind. Since the peculiar young wizard before him had no intention of handing him over to the Ministry of Magic, and he knew Peter Pettigrew, there could only be one truth. The other party was here to kill him. Perhaps he was a relative of Peter's, or maybe the young wizard's family had perished in the explosion 13 years ago, and now he was seeking revenge. After all, only he and Peter knew the truth about that year. Thinking this, Sirius looked desperate. But then, Ethan thrust a newspaper into his hands. Sirius took a closer look and saw it was a copy of the Daily Prophet, not the issue with his wanted poster and bounty, but an earlier one from early July. It reported that the Weasley family had won the annual award and planned to use the money for a trip to Egypt. Attached was a photo of the Weasley family, with the youngest son, Ron, in the middle, his pet rat Scabbers on his shoulder, the rat's right front paw conspicuously missing a finger. Sirius's chest heaved with intensified emotion. If not for the restraints, he would have immediately pounced on the newspaper and torn the photo to shreds. For now, he could only glare viciously at the image as if he could devour it alive. Then, turning to Ethan, his tone softened considerably. "Boy, how much do you know?" "More than you think," Ethan said in an ethereal tone. "I saw it on your Marauders map. At that time, I was puzzled why Peter Pettigrew's name was always next to Ron's. Later, I confirmed his true identity. A rat, an illegal animagus, just like you." Then things become very interesting. Why would a hero, a recipient of the Order of Merlin First Class, turn into a pet mouse and hide among the friends of his best friend's son? The Dark Lord has been gone for more than 10 years. What is he afraid of? Perhaps you can give me the answer? Although Ethan had also borrowed the Marauders map from the Weasley twins, he knew about Peter from his previous life. He mentioned this merely to justify his own source of information. "He is a liar, a coward, and he betrayed our trust," Sirius shouted, his voice hoarse with anger. "He is the real secret keeper, the traitor. He killed James and Lily." "I suspected as much," Ethan nodded. "But calm down, Sirius. Maybe I can help you catch him." "Why?" Sirius stared at the young wizard. Although he was starting to believe that Ethan wasn't there to capture him, his experience with betrayal still made him wary. Because the Black family is an ancient, pure-blood lineage and one with the most complete inheritance and the best development among all the 28 holy families. This was the case until the rise of the Dark Lord. Ethan smiled slightly, revealing his purpose. "I guess this ancient family has a rich accumulation, and you are its only heir." Sirius Black immediately understood what the boy meant, relaxed a little, and asked in a deep voice, "What do you want, the wealth of the Black family?" "No, no, I don't need the Black family's money." Ethan waved his hand, dismissing Sirius's initial thoughts. "I have more than enough money myself. I'm not interested in wealth. When I make friends, money is never a concern. After all, no one is as wealthy as I am." Ethan's statement was true. Since acquiring the Philosopher's Stone, he had never been short of money. To this day, he still had over 100 kilograms of gold hidden beneath his tower. Sirius looked at the boy and believed him. As the heir to a large family, even after decades imprisoned in Azkaban, he could tell at a glance that there was nothing cheap about the other person's attire. Such a young wizard had every right to make such a claim. However, this left Sirius puzzled. Then what do you want? Beyond money, he couldn't think of anything the Black family possessed that could be of interest. Ethan quickly made him realize his oversight. "What I want is knowledge," he said earnestly. "Specifically, the treasures accumulated in the history of the Black family, especially all the books." Even after obtaining the arcane master profession, Ethan didn't need to worry about learning magic. He could learn all core arcane magic simply by leveling up. However, this didn't stop him from seeking more knowledge in other areas. The pursuit of understanding and collecting knowledge was addictive. In the Wizarding World's collection of books, there were many unique books, personal records, and magical books that couldn't be copied. No library could boast a collection that covered most of these books, not even Hogwarts. "This is what you want?" Sirius still found it hard to believe, thinking Ethan's request modest. True to his Gryffindor nature, he was not easily satisfied. "But if you let me go, I can find a way to catch him myself." Sirius was not keen on relying on others for revenge. However, Ethan bluntly shattered his illusion. "No, you can't do it. After Halloween, you've been made a target. Hogwarts is on high alert against you. You can't bypass all the checkpoints and enter the Gryffindor common room to capture Peter Pettigrew. They don't know the truth, and in their eyes, you're a wanted criminal. Dumbledore will arrest you. Professor McGonagall will arrest you. Snape is eager for your demise. Professor Lupin sees you as an enemy, and even Harry, James's own son, will think you're the enemy who betrayed his parents. You see, no one is on your side, and you want to break through their defenses to find Peter Pettigrew within Hogwarts?" Ethan continued. Moreover, he was capable of blowing up a street of muggles back then. Now, he could blow up Hogwarts or even directly kill Harry Potter. You must remember, Harry and his best friend Ron Weasley have been living in the same dormitory, sharing meals and a room for over 2 years. The more Ethan spoke, the lower Sirius's head sank. Ethan relentlessly pierced his fragile heart. Finally, Sirius gritted his teeth and agreed to the deal. "Okay, I will trust you once. If you can successfully bring him here, I will give you all the books and treasures of the Black family." "Well, the deal is done," Ethan nodded, waved his hand to release the binding vines, and his tone softened. "As an ally and Harry's friend, I suggest you take a good rest here and refrain from acting recklessly. You need to be alive to make Peter Pettigrew pay the price, and you also need to be alive to fulfill our agreement." After saying this, he pulled out a large box of chocolates from his pocket. "I bought this in Hogsmeade a while ago. Now, it's yours for a lower price. If you can stay here patiently, I'll bring you supplies from time to time." With those words, the boy waved his hand and exited the Scream-in' shack, leaving Black alone in the corner, feeling utterly stunned. Chapter 209. After returning to Hogwarts from the Shrieking Shack, Ethan made his way to the school infirmary to visit Harry. Along the path, every student he encountered greeted him with warmth and enthusiasm. Many young wizards inquired about how they could join his study group. Ethan consistently explained that due to a lack of venues and resources, he needed to further discuss the matter with the headmaster. He suggested, "If you really can't wait, consider asking your head of house or Dumbledore himself for advice. If enough people speak up, perhaps the study group could be elevated to an extracurricular club sooner." Ethan's strategy was to leverage the students' voices to nudge Dumbledore into action. Despite Professor Flitwick's request to Dumbledore, which had gone unanswered, Ethan was determined to understand the delay. He suspected Dumbledore's conservative stance might be the issue, and wanted to showcase the popular demand for the study group. Upon arriving at the infirmary, Ethan found Harry resting in bed, with Ron by his side and Hermione busy with homework at a nearby table. Hermione approached Ethan with a look of surprise, eager to speak, but Ron's odd expression interrupted her. "Ethan, I didn't expect you to visit Harry. It's nice to see you still consider him a friend," Ron remarked with a hint of sarcasm. Hermione, unable to hide her irritation, responded sharply. "Wake up, Ron. Ethan's visit isn't late. He's been busy. Besides, he's the hero who fought off the Dementors." Hermione had noticed an increase in her arguments with Ron, not just over the feud between her cat Crookshanks and Ron's rat Scabbers, but also due to Ron's inexplicable antagonism towards Ethan. Ignoring the tension between Ron and Hermione, Ethan turned his attention to Harry, offering him a box of fizzing honey candies. "Harry, I hope you recover quickly," he said, setting aside their differences. Harry, touched by the gesture, struggled to express his gratitude and the turmoil he was experiencing. He had encountered the mysterious black dog again and was troubled by his extreme reaction to the Dementors. Harry felt he couldn't share these concerns with Hermione and Ron. Ron was too prone to panic, and Hermione, despite her intelligence, dismissed the significance of divination and the unknown. Ethan, however, seemed like someone who could understand, but Harry hesitated to confide in him, sensing a growing distance between them. Ethan, aware of Harry's unspoken thoughts, considered their friendship. To Ethan, Harry was still a dear friend, but their relationship had evolved. Ron's behavior, often marked by youthful defiance, didn't warrant Ethan's indulgence. Ethan believed their friendship didn't fit the mold of dramatic reconciliations found in stories. It was based on mutual respect and understanding. Addressing Harry's concerns, Ethan reiterated his advice. "Harry, as I've mentioned before, Dementors affect people differently based on their past traumas. That's why you were so vulnerable during the Quidditch match. I still believe you should seek out Professor Lupin. Whether it's to learn the Patronus charm or to discuss your fears, you'll find him more understanding than you expect." Ethan's guidance offered Harry a glimmer of hope, emphasizing the importance of seeking help and confronting one's fears. "Let Harry join you." Ron's words were cut short by Harry, who, before Ron could finish, interrupted him. Ron opened his mouth as if to protest, but ultimately he remained silent. This created an awkward tension among the four friends. Ron's dissatisfaction was palpable, not just towards Harry, but towards Ethan and Hermione as well. Ethan and Hermione, in turn, were reluctant to engage with Ron. Harry, on the other hand, seemed inclined to speak with Ethan, but hesitated, wary of exacerbating the situation with Ron. Unable to bear the uncomfortable silence any longer, Hermione decisively took Ethan by the arm, and they left the infirmary together. The next morning, the atmosphere in the Great Hall was palpably different. The Ravenclaw students, especially those in the study group, were met with a warm reception from the other houses. Their entrance was greeted with cheers and applause, a testament to their bravery and skill in using the Patronus charm, regardless of their success rate. The applause reached its peak when Ethan took his seat, a clear sign of his pivotal role in the previous day's events. The Dementor invasion had sent shockwaves through the entire wizarding community of the United Kingdom, marking an unprecedented attack on wizards by Dementors. Even the Daily Prophet, known for its allegiance to Fudge, openly criticized the Minister for Magic, questioning the security provided by the Ministry and the control they had over the Dementors. In the midst of this, Dumbledore stood up from the professor's table, commanding silence with his presence. "Yesterday, we witnessed a Dementor outbreak on the Quidditch pitch. Thanks to the timely intervention of the young wizards from Ravenclaw, led by Mr. Ethan Green, we avoided potential casualties. In recognition of their bravery, I am awarding 300 points to Ravenclaw House." Dumbledore's announcement was met with thunderous applause from all houses, including Slytherin. The unity was a clear indication that no one wished to relive the horrors of the previous day. As the applause died down, Dumbledore continued, "The Patronus charm is a complex spell, challenging for many experienced wizards. It's remarkable that these students, under Mr. Green's guidance, mastered it through their participation in his study group. Their dedication to learning and Mr. Green's selflessness are truly commendable. Dumbledore then addressed the growing interest in Ethan's study group, acknowledging its significant impact and announcing Hogwarts' decision to officially support and upgrade the study group to a club, providing necessary resources and facilities. This announcement was met with an even louder round of applause, reflecting the eagerness of many students to join and learn, motivated not only by the desire for self-protection, but also inspired by the bravery shown in facing the Dementors. Despite the high expectations, the reality of Ethan's study group was more modest. At the time, wizards were able to conjure so many Patronuses, largely due to Ethan's exceptional creation of various buffs, one of which was, naturally, love. Wu's singing and the carnival dragon's joyful banquet could induce happiness in people's hearts, allowing young wizards to fill their hearts with joy without the need to deliberately recall happy memories. This provided the optimal conditions for casting the Patronus charm. Facing the ominous presence of Dementors looming over the city, few individuals could successfully conjure happy memories strong enough to sustain a Patronus on their own. The second factor was the power of collective action. Witnessing many companions successfully conjuring Patronuses, even those young wizards who failed were not discouraged. The Patronus charm had become something attainable in their minds, and in the magical world, belief can indeed create miracles. In essence, this was a deliberate move by Ethan, a live advertisement that quickly became a sensation at Hogwarts. When Ethan found himself surrounded by excited young wizards, he noticed Dumbledore's complex expression from the audience. It could be said that Dumbledore's agreement to this initiative was entirely due to Ethan's influence on the public opinion at Hogwarts. Having faced the Dark Lord twice in his life, the venerable wizard couldn't help but harbor some reservations. Everyone feared the possibility of Ethan straying from the path of righteousness. Particularly when Ethan started a study group, the sense of déjà vu was overwhelming. After all, when Voldemort was still Tom Riddle, he too gathered a group of like-minded young people to study magic together. The only difference was that Ethan taught the Patronus charm, while Tom delved into dark magic. But who could guarantee that Ethan wouldn't venture into teaching dark magic in the future? Thus, Dumbledore, with his conservative mindset, had been suppressing Professor Flitwick's application in an attempt to keep Ethan's group within certain bounds. Unfortunately, the current situation made it impossible for him to continue this suppression. The idea of leading everyone to use the Patronus to drive away the Dementors was too noble, and Ethan's intentions were clearly for the greater good. Standing up to protect the weak, demonstrating leadership, and using white magic to combat dark creatures. No one would believe that Ethan could be the next creator of a group like the Death Eaters. After all, the first spell they learned was the Patronus charm, the epitome of white magic. If Ethan were truly a dark wizard, he would be consumed by the maggots emitted from his wand the moment he attempted the Patronus charm. In short, Dumbledore no longer had any pretext to suppress Ethan. In terms of strength, Ethan was more than capable of defending himself. Regarding relationships, Ethan had numerous allies within the Ministry of Magic. Given these circumstances, as long as Dumbledore wished to maintain his reputation, he had no grounds to suppress Ethan any further. In terms of righteousness, who could be more virtuous than Ethan at this moment? Today, Ethan no longer needed to remain as inconspicuous as before at Hogwarts. His time had arrived. Chapter 210. After breakfast, Ethan was ready to leave the auditorium when he was immediately surrounded by a group of young wizards. "Ethan, Dumbledore has agreed to expand your study group. You have a new venue and support from the school, so will the study group be recruiting more members? Ethan, can we join your training class?" The young wizards bombarded Ethan with questions. The crowd around him represented nearly all the houses, including Slytherin. The only person Ethan recognized was Astoria. Yaglin Glass, Tracy Davis, and the Caro sisters were also among them. In response to their inquiries, Ethan agreed. "No problem. If you want to join, please sign up with Miss Penelope Clearwater. This will help us keep track of the numbers and prepare for the lessons accordingly. We will inform you about future training sessions." His announcement was met with cheers from the young wizards. Ethan could sense a shift in their attitude towards him. They now looked at him with increased respect. They bid him farewell one by one, showing him the kind of reverence typically reserved for a professor. Ethan, it seems that our Ravenclaw's reputation now surpasses that of Gryffindor and Slytherin, Penelope remarked, her cheeks flushed with excitement. It was clear that she was thrilled to be recognized by the young wizards. As a long-standing prefect of Ravenclaw, she acknowledged that Ethan's arrival had dramatically changed the college's standing, challenging the dominance of Gryffindor and Slytherin. Meanwhile, Harry Potter approached Ethan. "If only Dumbledore had announced this earlier," Harry said, a hint of regret in his voice. "I wanted to join your class, but I've already committed to learning the Patronus charm from Professor Lupin. I don't want to disappoint him." "It's okay, Harry. Professor Lupin is an exceptional teacher, and you'll learn a lot from him," Ethan reassured him with a smile. One-on-one teaching is often more effective than learning in a large group. You're in a position many would envy. Ethan knew that Harry's hesitation wasn't just about Professor Lupin, but also concerned his best friend, Ron. With the study group now officially recognized as a club, Hermione was sure to join. If Harry joined as well, Ron might feel left out. Harry wouldn't want to put his best friend in such a position. With the school's endorsement and resources at their disposal, Ethan was determined to make the most of it. The club's new venue was a large, abandoned classroom on the third-floor corridor near the astronomy tower. Over the past few nights, Ethan had enlisted the help of strong individuals from Ravenclaw to clean and decorate the classroom for the club's use. This group included close friends like Cirilla, Penelope, and Zhang Chu, as well as several roommates, including Steve. Luna had also contributed, bringing along her friend from Gryffindor, Ginny. Hermione, naturally, was considered a key participant. "So, this is clearly a Ravenclaw initiative. Why ask for my help?" Hermione grumbled as she used the scribe spell to assist Ethan with copying the teaching materials. "What do you mean? Isn't this something you want to be a part of?" Ethan retorted, half-jokingly threatening to devour her if she dared refuse. Hermione playfully stuck out her tongue. "Really, you knew I'd come to help, didn't you? With all the attention Ravenclaw's been getting lately, Ron's going to accuse me of betraying Gryffindor. Do you care what he thinks?" Ethan shook his head, then enticingly offered, "How about this? If you help out these days, I'll let you participate in managing the club." "Really?" Hermione's eyes sparkled with interest. But then she added with concern, "But wasn't Senior Sister Cravat previously in charge of management? What will she do if I join?" "I'm certainly not asking you to replace her, but to succeed her," Ethan explained. "What I mean is, Penelo will graduate after this school year, and the club will definitely need someone else to manage it. How about trying a challenge?" "Certainly. Jai, vie it to me." Hermione's interest was immediately piqued, and she began thinking like a manager. "Ethan, have you thought about how the club will organize classes then?" she asked excitedly. "What, do you have any good suggestions?" Although Ethan already had an idea, he was pleased to see Hermione so enthusiastic, so he decided to let her develop her thoughts. "After your study group was established, I observed your courses. There were about 50 or 60 people in your study group before, and they were crowded into a large class, which one person could still manage. But after the enrollment expansion, the number will probably increase several times at least. For hundreds of little wizards, if they follow the original teaching methods, the effect will be very poor," Hermione explained. Ethan knew she had grasped the key issue as soon as he heard her explanation. "It turns out you have been secretly following the study group. You even know how many of us there are. Why were you so coy when I invited you just now?" Ethan teased. Before Hermione could respond, he continued, "Then what do you think we should do? If you look at our college, classes are divided into levels according to age. I think this is worth referencing. Since the number of people in the club is no longer suitable for collective teaching, why not divide the young wizards into different levels and teach them targeted content?" Hermione suggested seriously. After listening to Hermione's suggestion, Ethan kept nodding. Her idea coincided with his. So after setting up the classroom, Ethan called Penelo and Cirilla, plus Hermione. The four of them seriously discussed the next teaching plan, continuing the discussion until midnight. Hermione returned to Gryffindor alone, while Ethan, Cirilla, and Penelo took a walk to Ravenclaw Tower. I never thought that your study group would become an activity that all little wizards yearn for. Cirilla sighed with emotion, looking at the boy in front of her. I'm very happy, that's right, Ethan said, waving his hands gracefully. But it's not correct to say it's a surprise because after the study group was started, I firmly believed that my course could definitely develop to this point. The only difference is the length of time. Is this the confidence of a genius? Penelo looked at Ethan in surprise, his eyes full of admiration. In addition, this is not my study group alone, but our common club, Ethan added. Ciri, without you, I would not be able to teach so many little wizards by myself, and Penelo, the club cannot do without your daily management. You're right, Ethan. Being part of the founding of this club will be my proudest achievement at Hogwarts, Penelo said, looking at the boy and sighing. The three of them suddenly fell into silence. After a few minutes, Penelo's voice sounded, with a hint of melancholy and confusion. Surely, we are graduating this year. Graduate? Ethan was a little confused about this topic. He didn't understand what the other party was nervous about. Surely, your relationship with Ethan is so good, you have already decided on your job after graduation, Penelo stated, her tone full of determination. I'm going to be an Auror, Cirilla answered. This was what they had discussed before. Jaina had been focusing on increasing her influence in the Ministry of Magic. At this time, there was a lack of manpower. Just one Tonks wasn't enough. No matter how much she was promoted, being a squad leader was going to be her path. Overwhelmed by the situation, Penelo knew her qualifications were solid. No one would question her advancement, but she still felt the need for Cirilla's support after graduation. So what kind of job do you want me to do? Penelo inquired, her gaze shifting between Cirilla and Ethan. Her eyes, filled with determination, made it clear how much she valued their opinions. Ethan pondered for a moment before responding. As your friend, I wish for you to find a job that doesn't overwork you, where you don't have to worry about finances, where you don't have to submit to authority, and most importantly, one that you find fulfilling. Penelo's expression turned complex as she smiled. Thank you for your kind words, Ethan. It's no wonder you're so popular. She sighed. But you know that's not the answer I was looking for. Ethan could see the resolve in her eyes and sighed. All right, if you're set on this path, then aim to become an Auror alongside Cirilla. Gianna will look out for you. Gianna, really? Ethan noticed Penelo's genuinely surprised expression. It seemed she had long suspected this connection. When did you start suspecting? Ethan asked, intrigued. After I learned you accepted the Ministry of Magic's invitation for the dragon-slaying mission, Penelo explained. You're not one to work for the Ministry for mere honor, not unless you had friends or allies there. She continued, I knew about Deputy Director Gianna and Miss Tonks participating with you. I've heard about Miss Tonks from Cirilla before, and it was clear you had a good relationship. But Miss Tonks alone wouldn't be enough for you to join such a mission. Her position doesn't hold that much sway. Combining the travel cards Cirilla gave me over summer and the mission report, I deduced that your group had completed the mission early and stayed for a vacation. Gianna's presence with you on vacation indicated a closer relationship than I had imagined. Penelo's analytical skills impressed Ethan. She was indeed a perfect fit for the Ministry of Magic. Then she asked, Ethan, Cirilla, do you think I'm being too opportunistic? Before they could answer, Penelo admitted, Yes, I am opportunistic. But for someone from an ordinary family like me, seeking the right support is essential to make a mark in the magical world. I'm not a genius, just an ordinary witch who works harder than most. But hard work alone isn't enough to break through the barriers. You are my best chance. Don't worry, Penelo, Ethan reassured her, patting her shoulder. We won't hold it against you. Cirilla added firmly, Yes, Penelo, you have us. Under the moonlight streaming through the window, Penelo's eyes sparkled as she suddenly embraced Ethan, then Cirilla, expressing her gratitude. Thank you, I won't let you down. Ethan felt a bit stiff, but could sense the deep affection in her embrace. Update for Force. Additional update. The new month has arrived, and I'm reaching out for your support. Please consider sending flowers, monthly votes, comments, and rewards. Your votes are incredibly important to me as the author. Chapter 211. In the blink of an eye, it was time for the group learning session to begin once more. Over 100 young wizards gathered in the new classroom, buzzing with anticipation. Upon everyone's arrival, Pinello started distributing a test form to each participant. Given the large number of young wizards participating in the group, no, it should be referred to as the club, we've decided to implement divided teaching. We will develop study plans based on different groups, determined by your spell level and eagerness to learn, she explained. First, everyone needs to fill out this test form, and then proceed to the testing area with Miss Cyrilla. Your test results will directly influence the group you are assigned to. Ethan had meticulously planned the division of the young wizards into roughly 3 groups. The first group would focus on learning the Patronus charm, which was the primary reason for establishing the study group. The second group would cover basic dueling spells, such as the disarming charm, stunning spell, iron armor curse, and confinement spell. The main aim was to equip the young wizards with self-defense capabilities, effectively replacing the original duel club's role. The third group, Ethan's ultimate goal for evolving the study group into a club, was the expansion class. Here, Ethan intended to share some of his unique magic theories, specifically arcane magic theory, and teach arcane magic spells. To this end, Ethan had even redefined the study schedule for Class 3, ensuring it did not overlap with Classes 1 and 2. Membership in this class required completion of the first 2 classes, signifying that these wizards were not only talented, but also hard-working. These individuals would form the core strength Ethan aimed to cultivate. Arcane magic, unlike the well-known and widely taught spells such as the Patronus charm or iron armor curse, represented a comprehensive magic system with infinite learning possibilities. Ethan's teaching of specific spells meant that the core group members' loyalty and dependence on the club, and by extension on him, would significantly increase. Learning the arcane magic system would deepen their understanding of magic, with the myriad arcane spells at Ethan's disposal acting like a vast treasure trove, enticing them to delve deeper. This curiosity would bind them to the club, potentially for life. Ethan's strategy was to establish a community of interests. In the future, whether these talented individuals joined the Ministry of Magic or pursued independent careers, they would expand Ethan's influence in various realms. This network would be instrumental in building larger projects, such as a floating city or a boundary-piercing gate, which required collective effort. The test was straightforward and quick, with over 100 young wizards completing it in less than half an hour. The largest group, the first group, consisted of about 80 people, divided into 4 parallel sections. The second class, focusing on dueling magic, had around 50 participants. Most were members of the original study group, supplemented by new young wizards drawn to dueling magic. They were split into 3 groups. The third class, though the smallest with only a dozen members, comprised the most qualified individuals, mostly 6th or 7th year wizards. Many were likely to work in the Ministry of Magic after graduation. With successful teaching, they would naturally become supporters of Ethan's cause within the ministry. Now that everyone has been divided into teams, let's dedicate ourselves to studying hard and supporting each other, Ethan concluded, setting the tone for a collaborative and ambitious learning environment. In each class, we will occasionally have group competitions, similar to the House Cup system. The group that shows the most progress will receive Ethan's award. Each group will be assigned a teaching assistant and a group leader. The teaching assistants for Classes 1 and 2 will be students from Class 3, with the group leaders coming from within the group itself, while Class 3 will have Miss Cyrilla as their teaching assistant. The group leader is expected to work closely with the teaching assistant, helping and overseeing the learning of group members. The current candidates for assistant coaches and team leaders are provisional, and final selections will be based on future performance. By fostering a spirit of competition and cooperation, Ethan has effectively incorporated the best elements of the Hogwarts system to enhance the learning environment, assigning additional responsibilities to standout students. This new arrangement was met with enthusiasm by the young wizards. Peppa Pig Nero then took out a stack of freshly completed forms, announcing, "Next, I will announce everyone's class group," ensuring that wizards within each group can freely communicate with their classmates. The class will officially start in 15 minutes. As Penelo announced the time for grouping, the young wizards had the opportunity to explore the classroom, which Ethan had decorated. "Look at these books," exclaimed a young Ravenclaw wizard, eyeing the bookshelf next to the wall. "How did they manage to gather so many?" Slytherin's Hestia Caro, along with her sister, admired the rows of thick, sheepskin-covered books, including titles like Common Spells and Solutions, Outsmart the Dark Arts, Collection of Self-Defense Spells, and Fighting Poison with Poison. Her excitement was palpable. "Flora, this is fantastic. We have everything we could want. If we had listened to those fools at the academy, we would have missed out on so much." It appeared there were significant divisions within Slytherin regarding joining Ethan's club. The enthusiasm shown by the students for these books was a testament to the effectiveness of Ethan's approach, contrasting sharply with the likely apathy they would have shown if simply assigned these readings by a professor. "Our previous classroom didn't have any of this," Steve Cornford remarked, looking over various instruments like speculums and detectors, useful for practicing stun spells. Kevin Entwistle kicked a cushion excitedly, while Parvati Patil of Gryffindor introduced a wooden golem to several younger students. "Last year, Professor Ethan used this in our Defense Against the Dark Arts classes. It's not only resistant to ordinary spells, but can also dodge them on its own. It's amazing." Zhang Chu was examining the magic patterns on the bookcases and shelves, trying to understand their purpose. After failing to decipher them, he turned to Ethan and asked, "What do these magic patterns mean?" "That's the rune for an exorcism barrier. It activates when a spell is cast at the shelf, preventing spells from causing chaos during practice," Ethan explained. The discussions among the young wizards were brief, as Penelo soon completed the class groupings and the classroom quieted down. Penelo distributed the training plans Ethan had prepared, instructing the teaching assistants and group leaders to organize the young wizards for practice. Given that many lacked proficiency in basic skills, it was crucial to start with foundational spells. Some first-year wizards practiced the basic levitation spell to get accustomed to the wrist movements required for spellcasting, while older students worked on refining their technique. Disarming spells are widely used, yet many struggle to effectively disarm their opponent's weapons. Instead, they often only manage to force their adversaries to take a few steps back or miss their targets entirely. The classroom was alive with the sounds of noisy chanting as spells were cast and wands waved. Many of the spells missed their intended targets, flying towards the surrounding shelves, only to be stopped by the protective exorcism barrier. In contrast, the section of the classroom dedicated to practicing the Tronus charm was much more serene. Suddenly, the classroom door swung open. The arrival of the visitor caused the bustling room to gradually fall silent. Principal Dumbledore, many stud, Ents couldn't hide their excitement upon seeing him. Did the principal really support their club to such an extent? "Ah, I'm so glad to see such enthusiasm for learning magic." Dumbledore greeted them with a smile and a wave. His eyes then settled on Ethan. "Mr. Green, please forgive my interruption of your lecture. Would you be willing to spare a moment for a chat with an old man like me?" As he spoke, Dumbledore winked mischievously at Ethan, eliciting laughter from many of the students. Ethan returned the smile and nodded in agreement. However, beneath the surface of this harmonious exchange, he sensed that not everything was as it seemed. He understood that whatever was meant to happen would inevitably come to pass. Chapter 212. After sharing a few words with Cyrilla, Penelo, and others, Ethan followed Dumbledore to the headmaster's office. They arrived at the stone gargoyle, which Dumbledore referred to as chiffon cake. Upon saying the password, the gargoyle split to reveal the spiral staircase hidden behind it. They ascended the stairs and entered through the thick wooden door into the headmaster's office. Ethan had visited this office before. It was a beautifully round room, adorned with portraits of past Hogwarts headmasters, all of whom appeared to be sleeping, their chests gently rising and falling. Ethan sat across from Dumbledore's desk, observing the headmaster's hesitant demeanor, and waited quietly for him to begin speaking. "Perhaps we should enjoy a drink to soothe our throats before we converse," Dumbledore suggested. With a wave of his hand, a kettle and 2 cups levitated from a shelf and positioned themselves in front of him. The kettle, filled with sherbet lemon, poured into the cups under Dumbledore's guidance. One of the cups floated towards Ethan, and Dumbledore raised his own as an invitation to drink together. Ethan accepted the gesture and took a small sip, though his psychic senses remained alert, closely observing Dumbledore. Despite the headmaster's kind expression, reminiscent of an adult offering candy to a child, Ethan could sense the turmoil within Dumbledore. After a modest sip, Ethan placed his cup down, and Dumbledore did not press further. "First of all, I'm pleased you took action to protect your classmates that day," Dumbledore began, his voice gentle. "Your Patronus charm was exceptional, surpassing even my expectations." Ethan understood he was being praised for his feat of dispelling 990 Dementors with a single breath. However, he humbly shook his head and replied, "Principal, I was merely doing what was necessary." Dumbledore admired Ethan's demeanor, intelligent, brave, and humble, the epitome of a perfect student. Yet Dumbledore recognized that despite Ethan's young age, his ambitions and connections far exceeded those of many adult wizards. This realization was underscored by the information Dumbledore had gathered about Ethan's expanding network within the Ministry of Magic. From his first year, Ethan had established a close relationship with the new Auror, Nymphadora Tonks, and through her became acquainted with her superior, Deputy Director of the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, Jaina Proudmoore. These connections had grown stronger over time, with Jaina Proudmoore gaining influence within her department and Nymphadora Tonks rising to the position of squad leader in the Auror office within 3 years. Furthermore, the aristocrat Katrana Prestor, whom they had encountered in South America, had made significant strides in the Department for the Management and Control of Magical Creatures, rising to the position of Director of the Fire Dragon Research and Control Bureau. Unbeknownst to many, Ethan, a Muggle-born orphan, had woven a powerful network of alliances within the Ministry of Magic. Choosing not to delve into potential conspiracies, Dumbledore shifted the conversation. "Ethan, do you understand why Voldemort sought to kill Harry?" he asked. Ethan looked at Dumbledore, shaking his head, though he was well aware that the root of the issue was a prophecy. Dumbledore stood and retrieved a shallow stone basin, known as a pensieve, from a cabinet near the Phoenix Roost. Ethan recognized the device, having seen a similar one in the secret room beneath the restricted section of the library. Dumbledore placed the pensieve on the desk, extracted a few strands of silvery thought from his temple with his wand, and deposited them into the basin. He then returned to his seat behind the desk, preparing to delve into the memories contained within the pensieve. Ethan watched his thoughts spinning and floating in the pensieve. After a while, he sighed, raised his wand again, and picked up the silvery substance on the tip of his wand. A figure emerged from it, wrapped in a shawl, her yes appearing particularly large behind her glasses. It was the divination class professor, Sybil Trelawney. She opened her mouth and spoke in a harsh, hoarse voice. "The man with the power to conquer the Dark Lord approaches. Born into a family that has defeated the Dark Lord 3 times. Born in the 7th moon, the Dark Lord marks him as his rival, but he possesses an unknown energy. One must die at the hand of the other, for both cannot live while the other survives. The one with the power to conquer the Dark Lord will be born at the end of the 7th month." Professor Trelawney, slowly spinning, was absorbed by the silver thread below and disappeared. The office fell silent. Dumbledore, Ethan, and all the portraits remained quiet. Even the Phoenix fell silent. Dumbledore spoke. "The man who had but one chance to vanquish Lord Voldemort for good was born nearly 16 years ago at the end of July. The boy's parents had defeated Lord Voldemort 3 times. You mean Harry Potter, right?" Ethan revealed the other party's purpose. "You want to tell me that it is true that Harry is the savior of the wizarding world?" Dumbledore nodded and stared into Ethan's eyes. I know that you were friends with Harry before joining Hogwarts. At Hogwarts, you have shared many times of adversity. You have to understand that as the savior, he will face tremendous pressure, far more than anyone in the magical world. Voldemort will stop at nothing to take down Harry, and he needs your help. Ethan was very dissatisfied but did not directly refute. In fact, Professor Dumbledore, I have also done some research on prophecy magic. Dumbledore leaned forward, his hands clasped together, supporting his chin, and looked at the young wizard in front of him with interest. The moonlight reflected off his glasses, casting a white light. Many people say that prophecies are illusory and that divination requires talent. But in my opinion, the essence of prophecy is the collection and analysis of world information, which should have a systematic approach and methodology. Ethan expressed his views on the school of prophecy. Sounds a bit like the theory of numerology, Dumbledore commented. The specific methodology is more complex than number divination, Ethan explained. But you are right, the real prediction spell should be like digital divination, which is completely controllable, reproducible, and can be studied systematically. In my theory, the world is actually composed of countless intertwined world lines. Every choice you make is creating a new world line all the time. Predictions about the future are essentially information about the future of a certain world line. This information will appear in the prophecy, which can only be positive about the possibility of it happening, but it does not mean that the future will necessarily follow the path of that world line. But prophecy still works, doesn't it? After listening to Ethan's theory, Dumbledore remained calm. For example, when we know a prophecy, we can make some preparations for it to deal with the most likely fate. However, the reverse is also true. The more you believe in prophecies, the more likely they are to come true. Ethan shook his head. By the way, according to my information, Harry is not the only boy who meets the conditions of this prophecy. Neville is also one of them. Yes, you are right. Neville is also the child of destiny, Dumbledore agreed with this statement. But it was Voldemort who made the final choice. He was the one who chose to kill Harry, and he was the one who chose to believe this prophecy. In other words, in your mind, the fate of these two boys and these events were influenced by Voldemort's decisions. Is the fate of two families determined by Voldemort's thoughts? Ethan pointedly asked, trapping Dumbledore in a logical corner. Yet, Dumbledore remained calm, as if accepting this fact was no big deal. This is just Voldemort's choice, he said. Yes, that means only the strong can control their destiny, while the weak are controlled by others, Ethan expressed his opinion. This wasn't just his personal view, but also a conclusion deduced through Dumbledore's logic. Because of this, there will be no savior in destiny. Everyone's savior is only themselves. If I am dissatisfied with reality, I will continue to strengthen myself and then work hard to turn the imperfect story into what I expect. Chapter 213. In the midst of their rhetorical confrontation, the other party not only failed to be convinced, but also created logical loopholes, which in turn challenged the other party's point of view. Dumbledore's eyes clouded over with a hint of dismay. This was the first time he had been so thoroughly refuted in a battle of wits. Observing the young man before him, full of vigor, Dumbledore couldn't help but be reminded of someone from his past. That person was his closest companion in his youth. He had to admit, even when compared to Voldemort, that individual had a more vivid imagination than Ethan. They shared many similarities. Both were exceptionally handsome, immensely talented, widely admired for their strength, and both carried an air of confidence and pride. Yes, they were so alike. The only difference was that Grindelwald was a pureblood, while Ethan was born to Muggle parents. The old man sighed, attempting once more to offer some comfort. Ethan, you shouldn't think like that. Everyone wishes to be the protagonist of their own story, but it's a path fraught with difficulties, and not everyone reaches a successful conclusion. Sometimes, embracing your destiny can make life much easier. Easy? Ha ha, Ethan scoffed. Professor, do you really think I aspire to live an easy life? Isn't that underestimating me? Dumbledore shook his head, realizing he had underestimated Ethan's ambition. If you insist, he paused before continuing, I just hope you can steer clear of Harry and not influence or interfere with his destiny. Ethan was taken aback by Dumbledore's request. Was Dumbledore so confident in his plan that he believed Harry could defeat Voldemort without any help? Ethan knew well that his arrival in the Harry Potter universe, along with a series of visitors from other worlds, had significantly altered the fate of this world. Professor, instead of asking me to distance myself from Harry, perhaps you should consider encouraging Harry to distance himself from me, Ethan suggested with a faint sigh. To be honest, I've also noticed that Harry has been relying on me to solve his problems far too often lately, almost to the point where his intellect seems to be regressing. Dumbledore's expression darkened, reflecting his own concerns, yet he nodded in agreement. I will find a solution for Harry, but at the moment, the issue is you. Seeing Dumbledore's persistence, Ethan couldn't help but chide. Professor Dumbledore, don't you think you're overstepping? As an educator, you're personally encouraging a young wizard to sever ties with his friends. Harry and I have been friends since primary school. He's one of my dearest friends and family. So, what more do you expect from me? Ethan challenged. Do you seek payment in galleons? Dumbledore asked, visibly disappointed, not expecting Ethan to be so materialistic. No. Why does everyone assume I can be bribed with money? Again, I am not in need of money, and it holds no interest for me. So, what do you desire? Dumbledore inquired, genuinely curious. As a Ravenclaw, what I value most is knowledge. If you allow me unlimited access to the books in the restricted section, including those you've taken to the headmaster's office, then perhaps I'll be too occupied to seek out Harry Potter. Dumbledore frowned upon hearing Ethan's conditions, especially the mention of the books he had moved from the restricted section to his office. He looked at Ethan, attempting to reason with him once more. Mr. Green, I believe you should reconsider. Those books delve deeply into dark magic and could do you more harm than good. Ethan was quick to counter. Knowledge is knowledge, Professor. It is not inherently good or evil. It's how people choose to use it. The founders and successive headmasters placed those treasures in the restricted section to allow young wizards equal access to this knowledge, not for you to hide them away. Moreover, you've seen my Patronus, Ethan added, drawing his wand. Expecto Patronum, a silver dragon, majestic and gleaming, materialized in the air, its presence a testament to Ethan's argument. In the principal's office, Ethan did not let his Patronus shrink, but instead revealed its full grandeur. It was akin to squeezing a Hebridean black dragon into the confined space, instantly occupying every inch and sending everything on the bookshelves and table crashing to the floor. Dumbledore's phoenix, Fawkes, was so startled that it flew about in a frenzy. Initially, Dumbledore looked on in shock, having never witnessed such a formidable display of positive emotions. It was no wonder this Patronus could vanquish Dementors in a single breath. However, his expression soon softened. He understood that only someone who hadn't succumbed to dark magic could conjure a Patronus. It wasn't just a testament to powerful magical prowess, but also symbolized the caster's inner sanctuary of protection, love, and hope. In other words, the young man before him harbored far more love and hope in his heart than the average person. Dumbledore was unaware of the existence of psychics, individuals capable of molding and influencing the hearts of others, as well as their own. The reason behind Ethan's Patronus's immense size was the substantial spiritual power he infused into his positive emotions. After some contemplation, Dumbledore made a decision. Very well, I will relocate the books from the principal's office to the depths of the restricted section, he said gently. Furthermore, Mrs. Peace and I will refrain from inspecting the restricted book area tonight. Ethan understood Dumbledore's implication and made a promise in return. Then, I will not meddle in Harry's matters and will let him manage on his own. With their agreement in place, Ethan left the office. Reflecting on their conversation, he couldn't help but feel a sense of derision. Professor Dumbledore, your vision is limited to this world alone, unable to comprehend my broader intentions. Let's see if you can fulfill Harry's destiny before I transform the world. In the days that followed, Dumbledore ceased to interfere in the club's activities. Ethan then officially named the club, which many found peculiar, the Erudition Society. Initially, he considered calling it the Genius Club, but the name seemed too pretentious, and most members did not fit the title. The Erudition Society, on the other hand, suggested that even ordinary individuals could aspire to wisdom, aligning more closely with the club's ethos. After all, Ethan's goal in founding the club was to enlighten the ordinary people. As weeks turned into months, Christmas approached. Chapter 214, Christmas Morning. On Christmas morning, Ethan was awakened by Iwu in the tower. Early in the morning, she left Ethan's bed and dove into the pile of gifts, her tail wagging excitedly as she tore at the Christmas gift wrapping with her claws. As the self-proclaimed most popular dragon in Hogwarts, Iwu received a plethora of Christmas gifts, mostly consisting of various snacks and some peculiar gadgets. Among these was a teething stick for dragons, a gift from Hagrid. The half-giant had always lamented the loss of his fire dragon, Norbert, 2 years prior. Now, with Ethan raising Iwu, a little dragon that would not grow up, Hagrid's dream seemed somewhat fulfilled. Thus he always treated Iwu with great kindness, often preparing a bounty of snacks for her, including his notoriously sticky fudge and stone-hard biscuits. Ethan wasn't surprised to find the teething stick among Iwu's gifts. In addition to Hagrid's present, Iwu received gifts from her special friends, such as Fawkes and Larry. Fawkes, being one of the most intelligent magical creatures on campus, had a good relationship with Iwu, certainly better than that between their respective masters. Fawkes's gift was one of his tail feathers, which accompanied Dumbledore's Christmas gift to Ethan. Larry, on the other hand, brought a small basket of fresh mulberries she had picked herself and carried into the tower early in the morning. Ethan confiscated the feather, treating it as a Christmas gift from Iwu. As for the mulberries, only a few leaves remained by the time Ethan saw them. If not for Iwu's black and purple-stained mouth, he might never have known about them. Ethan's gift to Iwu was a blue tassel woven from unicorn fur, intended to decorate her tail. The tassel was enchanted with various illusion magics, producing a pleasant sound and leaving a blue phantom when waved. It was a perfect accessory for a playful and active dragon. "Great, Ethan. I've always wanted a tassel like this." Iwu cheered upon receiving her gift. She immediately put the tassel on her tail and skipped out of the room to show it off to Larry. The gifts Ethan received were naturally more numerous and varied than Iwu's, especially since he had formed the Erudition Society. Many of the young wizards under his leadership gave him Christmas gifts, including a plethora of chocolates and greeting cards from the young witches. Ethan, cautious as ever, set them aside. He was wary of the possibility of someone mixing in potions, such as a love potion, a concern not unfounded given Hogwarts' history of such incidents. Friends who knew Ethan well opted to give him books or alchemy and potion materials, knowing he could never have too many of such gifts. The Weasley twins sent him a trial jar of diarrhea candy, a prank prop they had attempted to make but never used due to its strong, unmistakable odor. Ethan realized that by sending this as a Christmas gift, the twins were actually seeking his help in improving the formula. Luna's gift was an invitation to a banquet at Lovegood House during the holidays, organized by her father. Zhang Chu gave Ethan a red scarf she had knitted herself. She had spent the month before Christmas studying magical knitting in the library, managing to complete the scarf just in time for the holiday. Although Ethan did not have a great need for warmth, the scarf was exquisitely made and held special significance as a personal gift from Zhang Chu. Ethan's Christmas was filled with an array of gifts, each unique in its own way. Ron's gift, a sleek accessory, complemented his collection well. Hermione's present, however, was unexpectedly intriguing, a copy of the Wizengamot Charter of Powers adorned with the magical seal of the Hogwarts Library. This was a surprise, since Ethan had been anticipating Quidditch Teams of Great Britain and Ireland, a book he had discussed with Onyxia. It seemed Hermione, overwhelmed by her duties, had mistakenly sent the wrong book. Ethan could almost picture Mrs. Pince's bewildered expression when Hermione would earn the Quidditch book to the library. Among all the gifts, Ethan found Dumbledore's the least appealing. It was a copy of Harry Hart, a must-read for wizards who dare not do bad things, a book that once dominated the bestseller lists. Its main theme was to caution wizards against becoming cold and hard-hearted. Clearly, Dumbledore was still concerned about Ethan's curiosity with the forbidden section of the library. Despite his mixed feelings about the gifts, Ethan was disappointed that Cyrilla, Tonks, Jaina, and other close friends hadn't sent any presents. However, their absence of gifts was due to their plan to celebrate Christmas together, which was a comforting thought. After a quick meal of leftovers, Ethan descended into his alchemy workshop in the basement. Laid out before him were the 2 arcane swords belonging to him and Cyrilla, a heap of goblin silver, and several Iwu feathers. Ethan had long harbored the ambition to upgrade the Arcane Sword 2.0. He envisioned a sword that could not only enchant but also function as a wand, with the ability to transform between the 2 forms. However, the challenge had always been the disparity between the metal used in swords and the wood in wands. This semester, Ethan discovered the potential of fairy silver, a magical metal with remarkable magical adaptability, similar to mithril. This discovery was a breakthrough, as fairy silver could bridge the gap between metal and wood, enhancing the sword's enchanting capabilities and making it compatible as a wand. Ethan had struggled to acquire fairy silver, as it was closely guarded by fairies. He had even considered melting down Gryffindor's sword for its metal. Fortunately, Onyxia managed to procure 10 kilograms of fairy silver from a pure-blood family, enabling Ethan to proceed with his Arcane Sword 3.0 project. With a flick of his wand, Ethan ignited the workshop's furnace. The fairy silver, placed in the furnace, melted into a liquid form under the intense heat. Ethan then carefully replaced the original metal in the arcane swords with the molten fairy silver, integrating it through alchemy. He meticulously crafted a hole in the hilt of each sword, inserting Iwu's feathers as the core. Iwu, a carnival dragon, was known for its exceptional arcane spellcasting abilities and magical adaptability, surpassing traditional wand core materials like phoenix feathers, unicorn tail hair, and dragon heartstrings. Moreover, as a creature of Elysium, Iwu's feathers could harness the magic of nature and influence emotions, adding unparalleled power to the swords. Ethan found immense joy in creating tools that could bring happiness. Therefore, he chose a phoenix feather as the core for his wand. This choice was strategic, as it not only enhanced his arcane spellcasting abilities but also bolstered his druid spells and psychic powers. It was a multifaceted enhancement, akin to hitting 3 targets with a single arrow. After integrating the fairy silver, Ethan employed the spell Transform All Things on the arcane sword. He meticulously guided it to morph into the shape of a wand, approximately the length from his wrist to his elbow. He then etched intricate magical runes along its surface. These runes were designed to amplify the caster's level when invoking spells, thereby significantly boosting the overall efficacy of the spells cast. In contrast to the wooden wands commonly found in the wizarding world, which rely solely on the inherent properties of the wood and cannot be further enchanted to prevent damage and ensure a seamless flow of magical energy, mithril stands apart. This material not only guarantees an unobstructed flow of Ethan's magical power within the wand, but also ensures the wand's integrity is maintained without the risk of damage. This is because mithril, unlike wood, is refined and possesses innate durability. In the final step of the process, Ethan took out the Philosopher's Stone and invoked its power to permanently solidify the transformation of the 2 arcane swords. While he could have relied solely on the power of Transform All Things to achieve a permanent change, he recognized that doing so might inadvertently interfere with the arcane sword's other functionalities. Opting to use the Philosopher's Stone, he leveraged its unique power to externally cement the transformation, ensuring no internal conflicts within the sword's capabilities. With these modifications, the Arcane Sword 3.0 was complete. Under ordinary circumstances, it presented itself as an exquisite mithril wand, superior in strength to Ethan's original wand and designed to leave no trace, thus eliminating concerns about being tracked by the Ministry of Magic. Moreover, when the situation demanded, it could effortlessly transition from a compact wand into a formidable, long sword. This transformation not only facilitated convenience, but also allowed Ethan to wield the sword using two-handed techniques without compromising his spellcasting abilities. It was a perfect fusion of spellcasting and combat prowess. Chapter 2 of 15, The Completion of the Arcane Sword 3.0. Ethan gazed at the magnificent and finely crafted wand in his hand, which seamlessly transformed between a wand and a long sword. His satisfaction grew with each glance. This was precisely the equipment he had envisioned. As he admired his new wand, Ethan was struck by the idea of crafting a special container for it. The wand would typically reside within this container, ensuring that, regardless of the urgency of the situation, a simple gesture would summon the wand into his hand, eliminating any frantic search. Moreover, Ethan realized the necessity of connecting the wand and the container with a chain to prevent the wand from being lost due to spells like the disarming curse or other unforeseen circumstances. To satisfy these requirements, he concluded that the ideal container would be a piece of hand equipment, such as wrist guards. This train of thought led Ethan to recall the hidden blade from Assassin's Creed, which featured a blade retracting into a wrist guard or gauntlet through a complex mechanical structure, allowing for automatic deployment with a minimal movement. However, Ethan acknowledged that such a mechanical device would be impractical for wizards, whose spellcasting often involves intricate wrist movements that could be hindered by the device. But wizards have their own unique solutions. Many mechanical components can be substituted with magical runes. Ethan decided on a wrist guard as the main component, choosing to craft it from basilisk skin, given the abundance of material available. After magically treating the skin, he fashioned it into a wristband and incorporated a 10-centimeter groove on the inside to house the wand. He then applied a space extension spell to increase the groove's length to over 30 centimeters, accommodating the wand's length, which was designed based on the distance from Ethan's wrist to his elbow. Next, Ethan crafted a mithril chain to connect the wand's end to the wrist guard and installed a magical mechanism, projection object, on the wrist guard, fine-tuning its strength for optimal performance. To the untrained eye, Ethan appeared to be wearing a simple wristband. However, with a mere thought, the mechanism would propel the wand into Ethan's hand, achieving both concealment and convenience. Ethan then embedded a gem within the wristband, capable of storing up to 3 spells of level 6 or lower. When activated, these spells would be transmitted through the mithril chain to the wand and cast. This ingenious design transformed the wristband into an extension of the wand, allowing for future enhancements to be added to the wristband due to its larger surface area and volume. To ensure that no one would notice the modification to his wand, Ethan also created a silent phantom spell, making the wand appear unchanged to others, with the mithril chain remaining invisible. Eagerly, Ethan donned the wristband and tested its functionality, marveling at the convenience of drawing and storing the wand. In the practice room, he cast several spells on a dummy, noting a significant improvement in power compared to his original wand. The wrist guard's spell storage feature proved exceptionally useful, especially when Ethan transformed the wand into a long sword, allowing him to cast a level 5 rainbow ray without delay. In addition to enhancing the arcane sword, Ethan embarked on another project, aiming to create permanent elixirs. The 6 crucibles in Ethan's workshop were busy brewing permanent elixirs, each with distinct properties. This wasn't because Ethan had managed to gather all the necessary materials so swiftly. Up to this point, Ethan had only secured the ingredients for the strength elixir, namely the hearts of various fire dragons, though 2 were still missing. For the agility elixir, the claws of the ocelot were within reach thanks to Onyxia's connections. However, compared to the chimera, the Quetzalcoatl, and the planned giant dragon, the ocelot's transformation seemed somewhat underwhelming, prompting Ethan to explore other options. As for the intelligence elixir, Ethan tentatively settled on the phoenix, which was the easiest to obtain. The ingredients for the charm elixir remained elusive. Nonetheless, this didn't stop Ethan from producing a batch of ordinary versions of the permanent elixirs. Since Onyxia had joined the Department of Management and Control of Magical Creatures, acquiring rare magical animal materials had become significantly easier for Ethan. This batch of ordinary elixirs wasn't for his personal use, but was intended for close allies like Cirilla and Jaina. Now that Ethan had established the Boshi Society at the school with much fanfare, he couldn't afford to overlook the strengthening of his teammates. Soon, the elixirs were ready, and Ethan carefully bottled them into categories, marking the end of the day's work. After activating the workshop's self-purification magic, Ethan left the space. It was only then, as he stepped outside, that he noticed the sky had turned gloomy. The realization that he had been working all day without a break hit him, along with a sudden, intense hunger. Descending from the basement to the first-floor living room, Ethan discovered it was already bustling with people. Jaina, Tonks, and Onyxia had arrived at the tower via the Flu network. Jaina and Tonks were comfortably lounging on the sofa, engaged in light-hearted conversation with Cyrilla. Onyxia, meanwhile, was energetically chasing Iwu around the living room, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she pleaded, "Iwu, little buddy, for the sake of your own kind, just let me touch you." Her enthusiasm was palpable. Iwu, the little dragon, darted from one sofa to another, occasionally leaping onto the table. He frequently glanced back at Onyxia, sticking out his tongue in a playful taunt, steadfastly evading her attempts to touch him. As Ethan entered the living room, all eyes turned to him. "Hey, Ethan, you're finally done for today. If it weren't for Siri mentioning your recent disappearances, we might have thought you'd been abducted by a dragon," Tonks joked. Before Ethan could respond, the others chimed in with light-hearted remarks, playfully dismissing the idea of any dragon, including Iwu, kidnapping Ethan. Sorry, Tonks said with a sheepish grin after being reminded of their dragon identities. She then turned to Ethan, reflecting on their friendship. "It's been 2 years since we met. I never imagined the talented young wizard who saved my life would have so many secrets. Every time I think about your connection to the Catalana dragon, I'm amazed by the wonders of our world." "Perhaps that's just how life is," Ethan replied, settling down on the sofa beside Tonks and Cyrilla. Jaina, having already fetched a large plate of desserts from the kitchen, placed it in front of Ethan. "You must be starving after spending all day in the workshop. Let's start with something to eat." The plate was laden with a variety of treats, including crucible cake and lemon slices, offering a much-needed respite after a long day's work. Ethan suddenly felt a great appetite and wolfed down the sorbet, butter toast, bacon, and more. While eating, he remarked, "It's better, Jaina, to be nice to me and know that I'm hungry, unlike these guys who just watch." Tonks and Cyrilla both smiled sheepishly after being called out. They indeed weren't that adept at caring for others. Iwudu rubbed at Ethan's feet in embarrassment. Onyxia, however, spoke with a hint of sarcasm. "Hey, little guy, you're thinking too highly of yourself. Not only did you enslave the Black Dragon Princess and make her work for you, but now you also expect her to care about you. Why don't you go live in Ysera's dream? Knowing that you are enslaved, you still dare to speak nonsense. I think you are the one living in Ysera's dream." Ethan frowned, put down the ice-cold soda in his hand, and slipped his hand into his pocket. The next moment, the Black Dragon Princess instantly transformed from her human form into a black cat. "Ethan Green, how da, Ryu?" she exclaimed. "There is nothing I dare not do," Ethan replied nonchalantly, continuing to eat. But Iwudu was delighted this time. Facing Onyxia in her cat form, she instantly switched roles, from being the hunted to the hunter. The two dragons began another round of playful tussling in the living room. Finally, after having his fill, Ethan watched as Jaina cleared away the food, and Cyrilla thoughtfully wiped his mouth. It seemed that after being called out, the girls were more inclined to take care of others. When Jaina returned to the living room, Ethan announced loudly, "Aren't you curious about what I've been busy with recently? Now it's time to show you some special Christmas gifts." Update 5 Force. Additional Update 40. The new month has arrived. I am asking for a wave of support. Orders, flowers, monthly votes, comments, and rewards. If you have votes, please give them to me, the author. This is really important to me. Chapter 216. As Ethan waved his magic wand, the permanent elixirs for 5 individuals were neatly arranged on the table. Jaina glanced over. Cyrilla set down her cup. Tonks focused her attention, and even Iwu and Onyxia paused their playful chase, surprised by the sudden appearance of bottles and jars. "These are—" Tonks couldn't help but inquire. "A permanent elixir that can comprehensively enhance the user's strength, physique, agility, intelligence, perception, and charm," Ethan explained. "Take, for instance, this elixir of eternal eagle majesty. It can improve the user's character, persuasion, leadership, and physical attractiveness. And this bottle of Eternal Cow Power Elixir, which can boost the user's muscle strength and endurance. This bottle of Eternal Cat Elixir can increase the user's hand-eye coordination, limb flexibility, reaction, and balance abilities. Ethan detailed his achievements, including these magical potions and 2 arcane swords 3.0. The pride in his tone was unmistakable, reminiscent of an enthusiastic salesman. The group exchanged incredulous looks, marveling at the potions before them. Is it really possible for such powerful magic potions to exist? Tonks covered her mouth, astounded. I know the Witcher's green grass ritual can achieve similar effects and even awaken a small amount of magic power in ordinary people. Unfortunately, the mortality rate is too high. Cyrilla reflected on the potions in the world of Witchers, finding none as user-friendly as these. Even Jaina, a mage from the high demon world of Azeroth, was impressed by the permanent elixir. Such a magic potion is a very precious treasure in Dalaran. I've never used anything like it. Onyxia, curious, asked, is this magic potion also effective on giant dragons? Of course, the higher your corresponding attribute, the lower the bonus you'll receive after taking the magic potion, Ethan explained. For you, the effect of the strength potion would be minimal, and the endurance potion would likely only have a small effect. He pushed the crystal bottles forward. Everyone, take 1 bottle of each kind and use it at your leisure when you return. Is Iwu also included? The little dragon peeked over Ethan's shoulder, looking at his master with hopeful eyes. Of course, as I said, everyone gets a share, including you and Onyxia. Even I have a copy. Onyxia, transformed into a black cat in Ethan's arms, glanced at her master, her eyes filled with complexity. From her arrival to her capture, and now, she had been serving this master for almost half a year. It was an opportunity to understand each other better. Among this group, Ethan was clearly the leader and the core. Even the eldest, Jaina, often heeded his advice. Yet, despite his mature exterior, Ethan's childish side was frequently visible. He would act playfully towards Jaina and Tonks, positioning himself as the younger brother, a role that these adult women seemed to adore. Onyxia found Ethan's methods baffling, especially his unusual punishments, such as transforming her into a cat, which she found utterly undignified compared to the more severe but effective methods she was accustomed to. What truly puzzled Onyxia was Ethan's endless capabilities. She had witnessed magic beyond his years, mysterious psychic abilities, and druid powers, all contributing to her realization of his complex nature. Despite his youthful appearance, Ethan was mature, intelligent, and had a clear vision, making him an enigmatic figure within their group. Ethan's methods surpassed her expectations. In addition to his top-notch alchemy skills, he now boasted powerful potion-making abilities. It seemed impossible to manage without him. No wonder he maintained his confidence even when facing her, the Black Dragon Princess. Ethan's penchant for collecting knowledge and his amorous pursuits were trivial in Onyxia's eyes. To dragons, greed was natural, and having multiple partners was a privilege of the strong. However, Onyxia had witnessed another side of Ethan. He sacrificed for his people, and even she, a prisoner, was not forgotten. If it were me, I wouldn't part with such a precious potion, Onyxia mused. Despite her status as a prisoner, obliged to contribute to his endeavors in the Ministry of Magic daily, and captured due to annoyance, she realized her treatment was unexpectedly decent. Receiving such a valuable potion indicated that Ethan regarded her as someone close. As a prisoner, she enjoyed a surprising amount of freedom. She had never heard of anyone allowing prisoners to work and advance their careers outside confinement. Working as a civil servant in the Ministry of Magic and navigating the upper echelons of the wizarding world to build connections turned out to be quite enjoyable. Even her transformation into a cat wasn't too bad, considering Ethan's gentle way of handling her. Ethan was unaware that his simple act of giving medicine had sparked so many thoughts in Onyxia. If he knew what the Black Dragon Princess was contemplating, he might only sigh, wondering if this was Stockholm Syndrome. After Ethan distributed Christmas gifts, everyone exchanged presents. Jaina gave Ethan a water elemental ring, capable of summoning a large water elemental. Cyrilla presented him with a bottle of giant wave sword oil, enhancing slashing damage, a Witcher specialty. Onyxia gifted Ethan 2 liters of dragon's blood, explaining, "I've saved this over the past 6 months. It's far superior to the low-grade, mixed-blood dragon blood. It was quite a challenge to save this much, given humanoids' limited health." Jaina added with a smile, only to be scolded for speaking out of turn. Tonks's gift was particularly unique. 2 autographs from Hamish McFarlane, a former Quidditch star and current director of the Department of Magical Sports and Games. Tonks had met him during a mission and received the autographs. However, the real significance was Hamish's leadership role in selecting the Yin Kingdom's Quidditch World Cup team. Disappointed with this year's chasers, Tonks had recommended the young wizards of the Hogwarts Quidditch team. Tonks winked at Ethan and Shirley, hinting, "Hamish has agreed to make an exception and visit Hogwarts after Christmas to watch a few games. If you're interested, remember to perform well and don't let me down in front of my friend." Ethan exchanged glances with Siri and nodded. The prospect of joining the Yin Kingdom Quidditch team and participating in the World Cup was an unexpected opportunity. Given Tonks's efforts, they were determined to seize it. Ethan truly enjoys the thrill of the chase in Quidditch. Cirilla, too, finds great joy in the sport, and both appreciate the camaraderie and mischief that come with playing together on the pitch. The prospect of attending the World Cup with Cirilla is an enticing one. Furthermore, it presents the quickest path to gaining worldwide recognition among wizards. Chapter 217. After exchanging gifts, the conversation shifted to Ethan's establishment of the Erudition Society at school. Speaking of which, there are indeed several very outstanding 7th-year graduates in the Erudite Society, many of whom plan to work in the Ministry of Magic after graduation, Ethan shared with Jaina. "If you're interested, I can recommend you to them." "So, you plan to select the team at Hogwarts through the Erudition Society so they can be immediately utilized by us upon graduation, right?" Jaina nodded in understanding. "This is indeed an excellent strategy. It's like having the best talents in the entire kingdom under our control. Even the so-called Dark Lord couldn't achieve this." "Because he cannot offer as much advanced magical knowledge as I can," Ethan said confidently. "The limited dark magic he has mastered is insufficient. What's more, he doesn't have many sisters who are high-ranking officials in the Ministry of Magic," Ethan added, prompting Tonks to puff up her chest, proud to be of help. "In that case, Tonks, I will arrange for you to be in charge of recruitment for the Auror office next year," Jaina decided on the spot. "Let them follow you then." "No problem," Tonks nodded earnestly. And me, Onyxia, also known as Catlana, chimed in. "I need a few helpers in the Department of Management and Control of Magical Creatures. Remember to recommend a few young wizards talented in this area to me." "Of course, how could we forget our Miss Catlana?" Ethan said, gently stroking the black cat's head. Onyxia shook her ears impatiently and continued. "And more. I'm running low on gold recently. You'll have to provide me with another batch." "Didn't I just give you 5 kilograms of gold last month? Why is it not enough? What expensive antiques did you buy this time?" Ethan couldn't help but complain. "If we were continuing as before, that amount of gold would have been sufficient," Onyxia stated matter-of-factly. "But now, with the establishment of the Erudition Society and the recommendation of graduates, you're clearly preparing for something big. You're expanding your influence throughout the Ministry of Magic and placing your own people in key positions. This will undoubtedly require a significant amount of money. After all, when graduates join us, we must ensure they have a promising future. This means we might need to secure key positions with money or use it as a subsidy for them." Ethan found Onyxia's argument reasonable and approved her request for more funds. He understood that if he wanted to quickly expand his influence in the Ministry of Magic and the wizarding world, he couldn't afford to be frugal. With the power of a sage, there was no need for him to hoard treasures like a dragon. After all, even the real dragon, Onyxia, didn't do this. Transforming wealth into corresponding status and influence was the most effective strategy. Wealth is a primary and significant power that wizards can wield, second only to personal strength, applicable not just to muggles but to wizards as well. In addition to expanding our power within the Ministry of Magic, we also need to start influencing other areas. For example, We need to find ways to control the narrative, Onyxia suggested, her excitement palpable as she no longer bothered to conceal her ambitious side. Unfortunately, the most influential daily prophet is under the control of the Ministry of Magic, Jaina pointed out to the Black Dragon Princess. She didn't find the idea too radical. Given my position, maintaining a good relationship with them and even infiltrating some influence isn't difficult. However, completely bribing and controlling them is another matter. Ethan immediately thought of Rita Skeeter, the chief reporter of the Daily Prophet, with whom he had previously collaborated. He still had leverage over her, knowing she was an illegal animagus. Perhaps he could continue to work with her to further his goals. If I have the opportunity in the future, I will certainly consider it. Her approach may not be the best for self-promotion, but it's an effective tool for dealing with others. The Daily Prophet is a key partner of the Ministry of Magic. It's indeed challenging to control, but managing Rita Skeeter could be a feasible strategy, Ethan mused. Alternatively, why don't we start our own media outlet? Tankei suggested. We have the funds. We just need to hire a few capable individuals. No, creating a new media outlet that solely serves our interests would be too obvious, Onyxia countered. The Black Dragon Princess was well versed in manipulating public opinion. Her efforts had once sown discord among the classes in Stormwind City, even leading to the Queen's assassination by stonemasons during a conflict. It would be wiser to acquire an established newspaper or magazine, she proposed. Ethan then remembered the invitation he received with Luna's Christmas card. Speaking of established publications, I have an option in mind, Ethan said. A friend of mine from Ravenclaw, Luna Lovegood. Her father, Mr. Xenophilius Lovegood, is the editor-in-chief of The Quibbler. Perhaps we can leverage this magazine to our advantage. You're fortunate, Ethan, Onyxia's eyes sparkled. Given your friendship, it should be easy to influence them without raising suspicion. This subtlety will enhance our ability to shape public opinion. Gianna, recalling her own experiences with The Quibbler, added, I've heard of it. It mainly covers fictitious creatures and odd tales. Initially, I hoped it might contain information about beings from other worlds, but I soon realized its stories lacked credibility. Nonetheless, its unique content has garnered a dedicated readership, which could be advantageous for our collaboration. Over the next while, the group discussed leveraging the Erudition Society to maximize their influence in the magical world. Jaina suggested funding promising graduates to start their businesses and secure more resources. However, Ethan deemed it premature. The magical world is currently too stable, and disrupting it now would be costly, he explained. Our moment will come in the next year or two when the Dark Lord returns and chaos ensues. That will be our opportunity to invest. Unnoticed by Ethan, the black cat in his lap gave him a complex look. It was his confidence, his certainty about the future, and his strategic foresight that made him a compelling figure to follow, even for Jaina. Onyxia, momentarily lost in her thoughts, didn't realize her eyes had moistened. There's something truly captivating about him in these moments, she thought. Her feelings a mix of admiration and a touch of Stockholm Syndrome. Chapter 218. A few mornings later, after having breakfast, Ethan bid farewell to everyone. Upon leaving home, he immediately activated teleportation and set his course for the Lovegoods residence. In the next moment, Ethan found himself at the base of a hill. Looking up, he observed a peculiar house perched alone at the summit, resembling a vast black pillar with a spectral moon looming behind it in the afternoon sky. This was his destination for the day. True to the Lovegood family's reputation, Ethan encountered something unusual right at the doorstep. 3 hand-painted signs were nailed to the courtyard gate. The first sign read, The Quibbler, Editor-in-Chief. As he followed the winding path, Ethan noticed a variety of strange plants. One bush was adorned with little orange radish-shaped fruits, similar to the earrings Luna sometimes wore. Spotting a knotted vine among them, Ethan cautiously avoided the withered roots, not wishing to provoke the plant into attacking him with its tentacle-like vines. 2 ancient crabapple trees, twisted by the wind, stood sentinel on either side of the front door. Though their leaves had fallen, they were still laden with small red fruits and large mistletoe corollas decorated with white beads. A small owl, its head slightly flattened and somewhat resembling an eagle's, watched from a branch. Ethan retrieved Luna's Christmas gift from his storage space and held it in his hand. Then he knocked 3 times on the heavy black door, which was studded with iron-round nails and featured an eagle-shaped knocker. In less than 10 seconds, the door swung open to reveal a man dressed in a blue velvet coat and trousers, complemented by a silk vest. His white hair cascaded around his shoulders, and he was accessorized with a floral silk belt, a pointed wizard's hat askew on his head, and a long, colorful ribbon from the hat draped over his shoulders. A gold chain with a peculiar symbol resembling a triangular eye hung around his neck. Upon noticing the invitation in Ethan's hand, the man's smile widened. "Ah, hello! I am Xenophilius Lovegood. Welcome." "Hello, Mr. Lovegood," Ethan greeted, extending his hand. "I am Ethan Green, Luna's classmate in Ravenclaw. I'm also a loyal reader of the Quibbler." Xenophilius Lovegood's smile grew even brighter. "Welcome, Ethan. You are our first guest today." "Thank you, Luna," Ethan began, but Mr. Lovegood, brimming with excitement, quickly interjected to inform him of Luna's whereabouts. "She's in that charming little garden, greeting the gnomes. They're everywhere, so adorable. Few wizards appreciate what we can learn from these clever little beings. Oh, their proper name is garden sappers." Before Ethan had a chance to sit down, he found himself following the enthusiastic Mr. Lovegood to the garden behind the house. There he immediately spotted Luna. In the lifeless and withered garden, Luna stood out remarkably. She was dressed in a bright yellow robe with a large sunflower in her hair. Once accustomed to the vibrant colors, Ethan found the overall effect quite pleasing to the eye, and notably, she wasn't wearing radishes as earrings. "Dad, Ethan is here too!" Luna exclaimed joyfully upon seeing Ethan. She shook the gnome in her hand and ran towards them. At Hogwarts, where many considered her the crazy girl, it was rare for someone like Ethan to take her seriously, including her fantasies. Her other friend, Ginny Weasley, showed tolerance mainly out of kindness, yet still harbored doubts about the significance of Luna's beliefs. "Ah!" Luna suddenly cried out, struggling to throw the gnome in her hand away. Then, pointing to a bite mark, she said, "Dad, look! A gnome actually bit me! Marvelous! Gnome saliva is particularly useful," Mr. Lovegood exclaimed, examining Luna's finger closely. "Luna, my dear, if you feel any new talent emerging today, perhaps a sudden urge to sing an opera or recite in the language of mermaids, do not suppress it. That may be the talent gifted to you." By the engineers, witnessing this scene, Ethan couldn't help but reveal a wonderful smile. To some, it might appear that both father and daughter were lost in a world of fantasy, or that the daughter had been negatively influenced by her father from a young age. However, Ethan's psychic powers had always informed him that Luna truly believed in this series of fantasies. If it were an isolated incident, it might be dismissed, but consistent belief suggested that Luna could indeed perceive things beyond the ordinary. Since these phenomena couldn't be explained by the existing knowledge system, they were attributed to Mr. Lovegood's fantasies. Ethan seriously considered the possibility that Luna might be a potential psychic. Psychic ability users are born with certain awakened abilities, but without systematic knowledge, they struggle to control these powers effectively. This could explain phenomena such as Luna's uncanny ability to discern others' true thoughts, her sightings of harassing flies, or her ability to hear voices behind the curtain in the Department of Mysteries, all indicative of psychic power. Luna was, in Ethan's experience, among the most naturally psychic young wizards he had encountered. Zeno Lovegood then spoke again. "Okay, I still have to prepare for the banquet. Luna, you are responsible for entertaining your classmates." He seemed eager to make some arrangements, nodded at Ethan, and quickly turned away. Ethan's gaze fell on Luna's fingers. "You really don't need to put something on that wound?" "Oh, it's okay," Luna said, sucking her fingers dreamily and sizing Ethan up. "I told Dad that most people probably wear dress robes, but he believes that you should wear sun-colored clothes for banquet ceremonies. It's to please a lucky draw, you know." Ethan nodded understandingly. He had learned long ago not to judge others' lifestyles. He handed the gift he had prepared to Luna. "Here, Merry Christmas." Luna accepted it with admiration. "It's a beautiful crystal pendant, but what did you put inside? Is it a moon frog?" You can indeed sense the power inside, Ethan said, a bit surprised. This is not a moon frog, but a kind of energy from the heart, psychic energy. Only fellow psychic users can detect this power. The crystal in the pendant was a psychic crystal, created by Ethan using his psychic powers. Psychic crystals are rare, capable of storing psychic energy. Ethan had stored a significant amount of psychic energy in the pendant as a test to see if Luna was a potential psychic. If she was, she would be able to absorb the psychic energy from the crystal, enhancing her abilities until reaching a basic level of psychic power. Ethan was surprised that Luna could sense the pendant's uniqueness without even wearing it, indicating her psychic talent was greater than he had anticipated. In other words, Ethan, you're also a psychic user? Luna immediately understood. That's right, Ethan confirmed. No wonder you can see the harassing flies, too. Luna exclaimed happily. Despite her general indifference to many things, she was thrilled to find someone similar to herself. She looked at Ethan, feeling extremely happy. Being understood truly felt good. We could go for a walk on the beach. Cleaning up goblins isn't for you, Luna suggested suddenly, her large, light silver eyes shining. Although Ethan didn't find the seaside in winter particularly appealing, he agreed it was more interesting than Ethan and Luna left her house, following the winding path through the mountainside. After what seemed like an eternity, Ethan heard the sound of waves crashing against the shore. Emerging from an arched cave, they were greeted by a stunning coastline. Standing on the reef's edge, they enjoyed the refreshing sea breeze and watched the waves break against the rocks. Luna, with her ethereal gaze fixed on Ethan, broke the silence. "Tell me about psionics," she requested, her curiosity piqued. "My dad never talked to me about this." "Not everyone possesses this power," Ethan explained, his voice carrying a hint of awe. "The power of the mind is miraculous. While yon can learn legilimency, true psychic power is far from simple. It's rare, with only 1 in a million awakening to it." He shared the basics of psychic powers with Luna, considering the rarity of meeting someone with the potential, especially a friend. The idea of teaching her to harness her psychic abilities excited him. After his explanation, Luna's question caught him off guard. "Ethan, do you want me to be like Hermione?" she asked innocently. Confused and slightly embarrassed, Ethan's face flushed red. He was fond of Luna, but her youth made him uneasy, especially when his feelings seemed so transparent. "I'm sorry, I was also drawn to you without realizing," he stammered. Luna blinked, puzzled by his reaction. "I mean, you want to teach me like you taught Hermione, right?" she clarified, wondering why Ethan was acting so strangely. Before Ethan could recover from his embarrassment, Luna expressed her happiness at attracting his attention, admitting she found him quite appealing, too. She hugged him, her light embrace making Ethan's heart sink. He felt outmaneuvered by someone a year his junior, a testament to Luna's psychic talent. "So what do you think?" Ethan asked after a moment, trying to steer the conversation back on track. "Do we have to decide now?" Luna tilted her head, her voice playful. "Okay, I promise you, boyfriend." "That's not what I was asking," Ethan exclaimed, his frustration evident. Luna's unconventional thinking left him bewildered. "I'm asking if you want to learn how to become a scion with me." "So Ethan is not the boyfriend?" Luna looked disappointed, but then perked up. "But becoming a psychic sounds exciting, too." Seeing the sadness in her eyes, Ethan found himself in a dilemma. He didn't want to disappoint her. "Actually, you can choose both," he said after a pause, cleverly passing the decision back to her. Luna's response was swift. "Okay, boyfriend, teach me to be a scion." Her directness struck Ethan deeply, making him realize he had met his match. Despite considering himself a free spirit, Ethan acknowledged that Luna was his equal in unpredictability. Chapter 219. During the time they spent together until their departure from the beach, Luna spoke very little. She often gazed at Ethan quietly, as if captivated by something about him. She attentively listened as Ethan shared his knowledge about psionics. It was evident that Luna possessed an exceptional aptitude in this area. By the time they left the seaside, she had learned to condense spiritual energy to slightly influence physical reality, such as creating a breeze or a faint light. On their journey back to the Lovegood house, Ethan shifted the conversation away from psionics to engage in more casual chatter with Luna. Throughout their conversation, Ethan felt a unique spiritual connection with her, a testament to the power of psychic abilities. Previously, Ethan had often used his psychic powers on others, but now he was experiencing the joy of mutual understanding without the need for explicit explanations. This psychic connection fostered a pleasant feeling and naturally brought them closer together. Their return to Luna's house took less than 10 minutes. Upon entering, they were astonished by the transformation of the interior. The furniture, once covered in dust, now gleamed, and vases were filled with fresh flowers. The house had been tidied to the best possible standard. The grand wooden clock in the hall and the cast-iron spiral staircase, with its steps and railings polished to a mirror-like finish, were particularly striking. Luna closed her eyes for a moment and concluded, "Dad is not here." She had quickly become proficient in some of the psychic techniques Ethan had taught her. They soon heard a crackling sound from the kitchen and followed it. Ethan found himself in what was probably the most unusual kitchen he had ever seen. The room was perfectly round, resembling a giant pepper shaker, with every fixture and fitting curving to match the walls. The stove, sink, and cupboards were adorned with brightly colored paintings of flowers, insects, and birds. Mr. Lovegood stood in front of the stove, wand in hand, his expression one of fervent concentration, as if he were conducting a symphony rather than preparing a meal. "Ah! You're back!" It was getting late, but fortunately, "I've prepared enough ingredients," Mr. Lovegood exclaimed with a jingle, his happiness evident. "You can go upstairs and have a look first. It will be ready soon." Following Mr. Xenophilius Lovegood's suggestion, Luna led Ethan to the second floor. This area served both as a living room and a workspace. Unlike the meticulously tidied first floor, this level was untouched by the day's cleaning efforts, presenting a stark contrast. To Ethan, it was only marginally more organized than the room of requirement at Hogwarts, which was cluttered with centuries of hidden objects. The room was circular, with books and papers covering every surface. Exquisite models of magical creatures, none of which Ethan recognized, hung from the ceiling, their wings flapping and mouths moving. These were clearly products of Mr. Lovegood's imagination. A corner of the room housed an old-fashioned printing press, its gears magically turning, partially covered by a cloth. Scattered around were several unbound copies of the Quibbler, indicating that many of its articles were penned here. Ethan also noticed a large gray spiral horn mounted on the wall, resembling a unicorn's horn, but extending several feet into the room. "This is the horn of the Snorlax," Luna introduced with a hint of pride. Ethan recognized the object as a poisonous horn, not just a simple decoration. This item was classified as a B-class trading item by the Ministry of Magic, indicating it carried some risks when kept at home due to its propensity to explode upon contact with anything. Wisely, Ethan chose not to argue with the young girl about the nature of the horn, but instead cautioned her about the potential danger of the snoring horn. Luna, surprised by this revelation, accepted his explanation. Next, Ethan's attention was drawn to a stone bust that was very familiar to him. The Boo Stet, positioned on a cluttered, curved cabinet, depicted a beautiful yet stern-faced witch adorned with an unusual headdress. This headdress featured a pair of curved, golden earpieces and a pair of sparkling blue little wings inserted into the headband's belt, with a small orange carrot affixed to another band on the forehead. Ethan recognized it as the stone statue of Rowena Ravenclaw he had seen in the Ravenclaw lounge. "I didn't expect to meet you here, Rowena," he thought to himself. However, Ethan refrained from awakening the soul of Rowena that slumbered within the crown, instead listening to Luna's explanation of the object. "This is the interference siphon," Luna said, pointing to the earpiece-like objects, which can eliminate all distractions from the thinker's surroundings. "This," she continued, indicating the small wings, "is the spiritual light thruster, which can lead to advanced states of thought." Finally, pointing to the orange carrot, she added, "This is the airship plum, which enhances the ability to accept the unusual." Ethan realized that this was another of Mr. Lovegood's inventions, designed to mimic Ravenclaw's diadem. He wondered what they would think if they knew the real diadem was in their possession. After exploring the house, Ethan and Luna returned to the stairs. Ethan, looking upstairs absent-mindedly, was suddenly captivated by a face staring back at him from the ceiling. After a moment of confusion, he realized it was not a mirror, but a painting. Driven by curiosity, he ascended the stairs despite Luna's attempt to divert his attention, indicating that guests had arrived. Ethan found himself in Luna's room, where two large paintings adorned the ceiling. One depicted Ginny, and the other, larger and more meticulously drawn, was of Ethan himself. Although these portraits lacked the mobility of those at Hogwarts, they possessed magical qualities, such as the ability to breathe. Surrounding the portraits were fine gold chains, which, upon closer inspection, were revealed to be the word friend, written thousands of times in golden ink. Ethan felt a deep sense of pity for Luna. He turned to embrace the overwhelmed girl. Nearby, a large photo showed a young Luna embracing a woman who bore a striking resemblance to her, dressed more beautifully than Ethan had ever seen Luna. It appeared to be a photo of Luna with her late mother. The frame was spotless, indicating it was frequently cleaned. Observing Luna's room, Ethan could sense the profound loneliness that enveloped her. "Don't worry, I will always be with you," he assured her, patting her back solemnly. Luna responded not with words, but with a nod, burying her head in Ethan's arms. Their moment was interrupted by the sound of guests arriving downstairs for the banquet. Chapter 220. When the two descended the stairs, they were greeted by a hall bustling with people and brimming with a joyful atmosphere. The deep tones of men's laughter mingled with the silvery laughter of women, creating a harmonious symphony of voices. Among these, Mr. Lovegood's sonorous yet gentle voice stood out, warmly welcoming guests of both genders to their home. The dining table, surrounded by guests engaged in lively conversations, was laden with dishes prepared by Mr. Lovegood himself. "Ha, Xenophilius! No wonder your freshwater fish soup is so delicious," someone exclaimed after sampling the dishes. "My daughter Luna caught these all by herself," Mr. Lovegood declared with pride. Ethan glanced at Luna, who nodded beside him. "It's a pity we didn't catch the big-mouthed ballfish." Her tone carried a hint of regret, though the existence of such a fish remained a fantastical notion, unproven by any evidence. Throughout the banquet, many guests approached Ethan, their enthusiasm evident. As a distinguished knight of the Sir Ethan Merlin Order, he was well regarded by those present. Ethan noted that the guests were predominantly individuals of significant status, wealth, or nobility, united by their interest in the Quibbler. "This issue of the magazine is very exciting. Have you considered increasing the print run?" Ethan overheard someone inquire of Mr. Lovegood. "If you're willing to invest, we can print as many copies as you like," Mr. Lovegood responded eagerly, though the conversation quickly shifted away from the topic. Similar discussions occurred frequently during the event, with Mr. Lovegood promoting the Quibbler to his guests, making the banquet seem like a prospectus presentation. Sensing Ethan's thoughts, Luna confirmed, "Dad's magazine has been facing some difficulties, so we hope to find support here, but I doubt many will offer their help." She expressed dissatisfaction. "Many don't take my father's words seriously, following the Quibbler only for amusement. They enjoy the spectacle of him seeking their assistance." After mastering psychic skills, Luna had grown adept at discerning people's true intentions. Disregarding the others, she poured herself and Ethan a glass of a peculiarly colored drink. "What's this?" Ethan asked, eyeing the green liquid curiously. "My favorite drink, raw milkweed juice," Luna replied, her eyes shining with anticipation. Sharing this with a friend for the first time, she eagerly awaited his reaction. Ethan, moved by her expectant gaze, took a tentative sip. The drink was slightly bitter, but refreshingly akin to mint juice, both fresh and delightful. "It tastes pretty good," he admitted, taking another sip to savor the unique flavor. Luna watched Ethan enjoy the raw milkweed juice, her face alight with joy. After the last guest had departed from the Lovegood residence, Mr. Lovegood slumped on the sofa, his demeanor a mix of exhaustion and sadness. "Dad, did no one agree to invest?" Luna asked, resting her head on her father's arm. Mr. Lovegood shook his head. There were one or two interested parties, but their terms were too demanding. They wanted to transform the Quibbler into something unrecognizable, which I couldn't accept. At that moment, Ethan stepped forward. "Mr. Lovegood, I know someone who might be able to help with your situation." "Really?" Xenophilius looked up at Ethan, surprised. Aware of Ethan's extraordinary capabilities, he regarded the offer with newfound hope. "Of course, it's true, Mr. Lovegood," Ethan replied affirmatively. "I have a friend at the Ministry of Magic who has always been interested in investing in a magazine. I think the Quibbler would be a good fit." "Who is your friend?" Mr. Lovegood looked at the boy expectantly. "Miss Katrana Presto works in the Department for the Regulation and Control of Magical Creatures at the Ministry of Magic. Perhaps you have heard of her?" Ethan mentioned Onyxia's name. "Of course, Dame Presto. I've long admired her reputation, but I didn't expect that she'd also heard of the Quibbler," Mr. Lovegood exclaimed, visibly excited. Katrana's reputation had evidently spread far and wide, befitting the Black Dragon Princess. "Now that you know each other, it will be easier to proceed. I can arrange a meeting with you in the next few days to discuss the specifics in detail." "No problem." Mr. Lovegood couldn't wait to agree. So Ethan bid farewell to Mr. Lovegood and his daughter. The next day, he brought Onyxia to visit, sparing her from continuing her punishment as a cat. In the Lovegood house's living room, Katrana Presto and Xenophilius Lovegood sat down for a talk. After exchanging pleasantries, Mr. Lovegood got straight to the point. "I heard from Mr. Green that Miss Presto was interested in buying a stake in the Quibbler." "Yes," Onyxia nodded, adding, "I've reviewed all the major newspapers and magazines in the kingdom. In my view, most are quite mediocre, focusing on sensational stories or boring gossip for the sake of profit, lacking the spirit of truth-telling. Only the Quibbler stood out to me." Xenophilius was overjoyed at her words. "That's natural. I've always believed that publishing magazines solely for profit is the most mundane endeavor." However, his happiness was short-lived as Onyxia continued. "However, I believe the Quibbler has not yet lived up to its name. But I have tried my best to write something special," Lovegood retorted, taken aback. "No, it's not enough," Catlana firmly stated. "Perhaps your magazine's influence is too small, and it reveals too little truth." She then listed examples of truths that the Quibbler could reveal, such as the existence of sageweed, the true nature of the howling monster in the Vale of Glamorgan, and the ancient race of fire dragon people hidden in the world. Xenophilius was astounded, never having encountered someone with such a shared passion for uncovering strange stories. Yet, Onyxia's next words were even more shocking. In addition to subverting readers' perceptions and revealing the truth, the Quibbler should also challenge the status quo, including our current Ministry of Magic and Minister Cornelius Fudge. She argued that the media often sang praises too readily, even in situations as grave as the Dementor attacks on Hogwarts grounds. The Quibbler needs to provide opposing viewpoints and challenge the mainstream narrative to truly live up to its name. Hearing Onyxia's ambitious vision, Xenophilius broke out in a cold sweat. He had thought his editorial stance was already radical, but Onyxia, a Ministry of Magic employee, proposed an even more revolutionary approach, challenging the conservative tendencies prevalent among most investors. From the Ministry of Magic, he had always considered himself a moderate, yet he found himself grappling with the realization that he might be too conservative. This revelation, however, sparked a sense of excitement within him. As someone in the media, the allure of expressing oneself freely through writing was irresistible. Thus, he found himself agreeing with the Black Dragon Princess, Onyxia Resto. "Miss Resto, you've opened my eyes. I hadn't expected to receive such insightful guidance from you. It's clear now that you are an investor whose vision aligns perfectly with that of the Quibbler. I am, in principle, open to accepting your investment," he said. The absence of ideological conflict paved the way for discussions about the financial aspects of the investment. Onyxia insisted on maintaining absolute control over the magazine to ensure its direction aligned with her vision. However, she offered Xenophilius an attractive deal that was hard to refuse, ensuring he would remain as the editor-in-chief. After all, Xenophilius was a seasoned media professional whose expertise was invaluable, and Onyxia recognized that. She believed in letting the experts manage the operational details while she guided the overarching strategy. Onyxia also had several suggestions for improving the magazine's operations. "It's essential to adequately compensate contributors for their work," Ms. Resto emphasized. "Not everyone is motivated solely by fame. While we must accommodate such creators, it's crucial to remember that financial incentives are important too. She also proposed to introduce new contributors who would periodically submit articles on various topics. Initially, Xenophilius was hesitant, but his reservations melted away when Onyxia mentioned the subjects of the first batch of articles, rattleweed and howling monsters. "If your contributors share our interests, then I see no issue," he conceded. Unbeknownst to Xenophilius, he was not fully aware of Onyxia and Ethan's strategy. Xenophilius's own publications, filled with tales of fantastical creatures like the bent-horned Snorlax and the Moonfrog, were products of his imagination. However, the sage and howling monsters mentioned by Ethan, as well as the so-called fire dragons, individuals transformed by Onyxia's dragon blood, were very real. These beings, results of extraterrestrial invasions, had appeared too briefly in the world, leaving the wizarding community with little knowledge and thus relegating them to mere anecdotes. Ethan's plan was to first introduce these anecdotes in the Quibbler. After their influence had grown, individuals like Ethan would embark on expeditions to study these creatures, eventually publishing their findings in reputable journals to prove their existence. This strategy aimed to transform the Quibbler from a tabloid known for speculative stories into a respected publication recognized for uncovering the truth about the world's mysteries. This approach mirrored the way people viewed Ultraman, as mere fantasy, until the day extraterrestrial beings like the Baltans actually appeared on Earth, prompting a reevaluation of Ultraman's reality. As for the articles critiquing current affairs that Onyxia proposed, they were not intended to immediately boost the magazine's reputation or promote their agenda. Before Voldemort's resurrection, the Quibbler had faced criticism for its stance against the Ministry of Magic. In Singing the Devil, the references to magic and fudge will serve as a harbinger for future events. The articles, which may seem absurd and baseless now, will be recognized for their foresight and accuracy when Voldemort makes his return. At that juncture, the Quibbler will find it significantly easier to influence public opinion. As we step into a new month, I find myself reaching out for your support. I'm looking for custom orders, flowers, monthly tickets, comments, and rewards. If you have any tickets, I kindly ask you to consider sending them my way. Your support is incredibly important to me.